with Giants football on the Fan, WFAN and WFAN FM, New York.
Hey, Giants fans, this season Pepsi's going live to upgrade your football experience. Go to madefornyfootballwatching.com for rules and learn more. Pepsi, the official soft drink of the Giants. Evan Ingram's first career rushing touchdown. And the Giants' first offensive possession, 7 plays, 75 yards. Ingram, a 3-yard touchdown run, and the Giants with a 7-3 lead over the Dallas Cowboys with 6:53 to go. And throw some nice play designs in there for the Giants. They got the running game going a little bit with Devontae Freeman, 3 carries for 20 yards. And Jones hit 3 of 3 for 47. Slayton, a beautiful catch of 17 along the sideline.
It all started up front, Bob. Their offensive line was attacking, running downhill, and everything came off of that. That's where the rhythm comes.
So Graham Gano will kick it off from right to left. Here at AT&T.
Is that you, sir?
Yes, good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. Yourself?
Every day's a party.
Excuse me?
Every day's a party.
Ah, well, then enjoy. Celebrate. I think you're being ironic, aren't you?
Ironic or realistic, take your choice.
Well, remember what my one aunt said when she was a little girl. She observed it. Pardon?
I apologize. That was rude. I apologize. I'm still waiting on my guest.
Ah. Anyway, my aunt in her childhood observed it, and things are never so worse that they couldn't be worser.
Well, I beg to differ, but you know.
Well, you have a perspective that I don't have knowledge of.
No. Well, yes and no. Yes and no.
Well, I think I saw in my late son some of the demons that bother you. I think I told you that before.
That's why I said yes and no.
Had there been a chance, an opportunity, perhaps you and he might have chatted. But water's over the dam. To an issue immediacy, if I'm not interrupting you, tell me to stop if I must.
No.
You saw the report of arrest of some people who were ostensibly threatening to kidnap the governor of Michigan and put her through a treason trial.
Yes.
Well, last night I got the spin from one of these people I know that tends to be a Trump fan. He said now they're finding out that those are actually leftists. Those guys they arrested, they're on the left. They hate President Trump.
Right.
Is this true?
No.
Has that been reported?
No.
I didn't think so.
Not anywhere with any credibility. No.
Well, yeah, that's a good caveat to add. You can get whatever news you want if you know where to look.
Correct.
A scary thing. Excuse me?
One of my favorite pictures, memes, as they are referred to, that I have seen recently. Just hang on 1 second, friends.
Please don't let me interrupt your process there.
Not interrupting me at all, sir. We are live, so we won't use any of those 7 deadly words. There's Mr. Padora. How are you, sir? You are still muted, sir.
Doing well. How about yourself?
There he is. How are you?
I'm doing great. How's it going?
I'm doing some, I'm actually doing some of the pre-production work. So just No worries. I'll be doing some of the sharing and whatnot. One of my dear friends, Franz Messerschmidt, who you have come across on some of the our Revolution calls, is on. We're just chatting. He uses this method to listen to the program. He'll be muted in the background. You won't even know he's there. He just uses this. This is the method by which he listens.
Cool.
To the program. He is kind enough to listen. I haven't destroyed his brain as of yet. So he is here. He's here and with us at the moment. I used the. I wasn't talking to you, Siri. He, is kind enough to chat with me, keep me company before, before we get into the nitty gritty of it. I'm doing some of the work here, including sharing onto your campaign page as we speak.
Thank you.
So I'm doing some of the, the fun bits. We are currently live. I'm doing some of the Facebook sharing. Even though we are not governed by the FCC, we don't do any of the 7 George Carlin words. It's a family program. There are, honestly, and I mean this with all sincerity, there are kids that watch. There are people who are not legal adults that watch. So we don't do any of that.
Thanks for the warning.
Well, we get heated. I might,
it happens.
I might discuss the nether world below us, where certainly God will decide to send me when my days are done. And I might, drop that cement wall that holds back water every now and then. But we don't do any of the heavy stuff. We try to keep it that way. Keep it on the up and up. So not on the up and up. Of course, it's on the up and up. But you understand what I'm getting at, I think.
I certainly do.
We don't do any of the heavy stuff. So let me just keep. I'm just going to keep doing, because this is the boring bit. Nobody wants to see this bit, so we try to do that. You're also going to see me. We're about 6 minutes out from where I push play for Hot 101, and the audio will start going global. You have not been here before. I know you've seen a little bit of the program. Let me just take you through. I'm looking at you through a MacBook. The MacBook is currently running Zoom, which is obviously what you and I are on. Yep. That's what is running. It's also running all of the sound, the video, the everything through the MacBook is running everything. Somebody just messaged me that I don't even know who it is. It's an interesting thing. It is running everything through the MacBook and through a mixing board. All of that is going out to Facebook, and the audio will go out through Hot 101. You're going to see me looking at you, talking to you, but you're also going to see me drift off to another Windows laptop in front of me that I can use to DuckDuckGo or Google things immediately if we need some facts or fact check, or just to be, if I happen to say something that I'm not confident about, I will check myself straight away.
Okay.
And then also off to my right here, I have an iPad that I will watch. The Facebook feed live in my home group page for the show, where people can chat. I will see them come into the room and so on and so on. Don't ever think that you've lost me. I'm with you. I might not be looking at you, but I hear you. I'm with you.
Sounds good.
No need to worry about that. How are we doing today? Is everything all right? John, everything's good?
Yeah, everything's going good for me. Just enjoying a little downtime today with the family.
Well, I've ruined that for you.
No, it's okay. Just hanging out.
the sound down. 57. I hate the way they have changed this. That's one of my cats, I think. Yep, there she is. Hi, sis. What's the matter? Somebody's not happy. You need to get going. I gotta get started. Thank goodness you did that before 5 o'clock. Gotta go. All right, John, here we go.
Sir.
Welcome, 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 one and all. We are back yet again. For those of you who are joining us via Facebook, you have been with us for a few minutes as we start early, as we always do, doing the technical bits. And you heard from my OSHA rep. My cat was having a go at me. She's mad. I actually had to close the door for the first time in the history of the program. We had to close the door because she was not happy. Welcome, 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 one and all, from my humble second bedroom here in the Saucon Valley, part of the Lehigh Valley, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, part of these United States, on planet Earth, the third rock from the sun, the only planet we have in the Terran solar system, part of the Milky Way galaxy. This is the Kennedy Effect for 11 October 2020. We return to you once again with our cavalcade of candidates as we approach what will be and is one of the most important election cycles in the history of our nation, rivaled only by perhaps the very first election cycle in the 1780s, the pre-Civil War cycle, and 1932, arguably. One of the most important election cycles ever, 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 ever. If you have not filled out the census yet, please do so. You have only until the end of October, and the current regime is trying to cut that short in direct violation of court order. If you have not voted yet, and you have a mail-in ballot, please do so. If you are in an early voting state, go vote. You can do that. If you are in a state where you can still register, if it isn't too late for you to register, by God, check. Go online and check see if you can even still register. You may be able to register. Do it. Don't let anyone take your vote from you. As I have said to you on this program weekly, I do not hide who I am. I am a member of the Democratic Party, even with all of its faults, and there are many. My party is not perfect, but it is the one party trying to expand your ability to vote. It is the one party trying to represent working folks in some form and measure, the 99%, not the one. But we are not perfect. We are not. But we're certainly trying to do something as opposed to the party opposite. That said, get inside this party. Go be a precinct committee person. Join your local party. Show up at your local party events, party meetings, phone calls, Zooms, however your local party is meeting. And if you can't do it before this election, then do it immediately after and become active. Make this party what it is and should be: the party of Roosevelt, the party of Jefferson and Madison and Truman and Teddy Roosevelt and Lyndon Johnson and that member of the family right there, John Kennedy. So proud to have you all with us here yet again. Proud to be with you yet again. It's been a rough week here. I will get into a little bit of what's happening here at home later in the program. Hope continues to drain from this home at an alarming rate, but we'll get into that a little later in the program. Wherever you are with us on Facebook, we share the program now to 50 plus different pages and groups, including several national pages. We have shared the program. I hope they will publish it and allow me to actually broadcast from there. We've shared the program to the Progressive Democrats of America for the first time, to the PD. There's another Progressive Democrats. I'm gonna get the name wrong. I'm gonna get it wrong. I gotta look it up because I'm gonna get it wrong. We have shared to the People for Democratic Party Reform for the first time, Our Revolution National, Our Revolution Pennsylvania. We've shared to our guest's campaign page and his private page. We shared to the Bethlehem City Democratic Committee, Easton Democratic Committee, to Turn PA Blue, to Our Future Western PA, Our Future Central PA. We're all the I Thrive community, Lehigh Valley Progressive Democrats, the Lehigh Valley Young Democrats. I can't even name the 50 different places that we're at. I should probably write them all down some week and actually read them all to you to give them the thanks that they deserve. But we are shared out over 50 different places now, and including the number of national platforms that we are shared to continues to grow, and we are grateful, we are proud, we're humbled to be part of your Sunday evenings every single week here at the Kennedy Effect. Among those national Facebook platforms that we are shared to is our global audio partner, and proud to be member of the Hot 101.net family. If you do not know how to listen to Hot 101.net yet, where have you been? I explain it to you every week. It's brilliant. And if you haven't been to the Hot 101.net main website page yet, it has been completely redesigned. It is very, very simple to use. It looks great. And look, simple is a great thing when it comes to website design. Trust me, it looks great. It's very, very simple to use. You can go there by going to, yep, you guessed it. It's really self-explanatory. Hot101.net page looks great. If you don't know how to listen to hot101.net, that's where you can go. The main website page, hot101.net. You can also find hot101.net at the Apple App Store. If you have an Android device, you can go to the Google Play Store and find the app there. If you have the TuneIn Radio app, you can also find hot101.net just by searching for it inside the TuneIn Radio app. If you have a business, a product, a service, anything that you want to promote globally, and I'm not kidding, I mean it, globally, you can just email us. Look at that fancy piece of paper right there behind me. Email us thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. You can also send questions to our guests, questions to me, show topic suggestions, guest suggestions, anything that has anything to do with the world that is the Kennedy Effect. You can email us at thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. I do notice that I sound a little different. I'm trying to lower the mic today so you can see my whiteboard of death over here, my whiteboard of power. I don't even know if you can read it on the screen, but it is over there. I did get a little whiteboard inspired by Rep. Katie Porter. If you are anywhere that you are on Facebook, look, we're thrilled that you're watching. We're just glad that you're with us. I don't care where you're watching or listening. We're just glad that you're with us. But please keep in mind, it is our home group Facebook page, That Other Side of Information, where we will see you. There's just a few folks in there right now. We will have an interactive chat with you. You can put in comments. You can put in questions. You can yell, shout, scream, disagree, agree. Anything that comes to mind, I will see it. It will be there. I hate this new format, to be honest, because you're jammed in a little column, and it makes it very, very difficult. But I will see it, and I will love it, enjoy it. We'll chat together. I'll see it. I'll welcome you into the room. That Other Side of Information is the home Facebook page for all things the Kennedy Effect. So, with all of that business out of the way, let me get to my friend and my guest. Is John Padora, the candidate for the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives from that is my phone that I forgot to silent. Very, very, very professional when I forget to turn the ringer off on the phone. He is the Democratic nominee and candidate for the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives from I want to say the 37th district, because the numbers are jumbled up my head. Do I have that right? It's the 37th district.
You got it.
The thumbs up. So, hey, I got one right, even a blind squirrel. He is joining us from his home tonight, carving out some family time for us to join us, and he is our guest tonight. John, welcome to the program.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for having me.
So, John, you are not unfamiliar with the program, which I must thank you for that as well. You have told me that you have dipped in and out of the program on occasion. Mm-hmm. So that means you know what's coming. So let me just start, as we traditionally do. Who is John Padora, and how did you get here? Sure.
So I'll try to not ramble on too long with it. I'm a husband.
The floor is yours, sir. The question. Okay. The question is open-ended. You are not unfamiliar with the program. You know that's how we start. So the question is yours. You answer it as you see fit.
For sure. So, like I said, I'm a husband. I'm a father to 3 young children. I live here in northern Lancaster County. I'm a blue-collar manufacturing engineer, a precision manufacturing worker. I've been in that industry for roughly the last decade. I also have a background in environmental sciences and geospatial technology. So, I'm very passionate, very active, in regards to environmental activism. I specialized in climate change mitigation techniques when I was obtaining my degree. So the environment's something that I'm really passionate about. But to answer the question a little bit more about who I am and why I'm here, I guess I'd have to integrate my story into that a little bit. So I'd like to start by telling everyone that I'm an individual in long-term recovery from opioid addiction. If you turn the clock back about a little over 7 years ago, I was actually lying in a jail cell in county prison. And it was really during those lonely nights that I spent alone in a jail cell that I decided I didn't want to become another statistic. I didn't want to end up like my friends that I watched circulate in and out of the justice system for years. I didn't want to end up like more of my unfortunate friends and family members who passed away from overdoses. I made a commitment to myself, to my wife, to my children, to my community to get better. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do so. So one of the biggest things that really inspired me to run for office in the first place was my own experiences within our broken criminal justice system. I experienced it firsthand. I went to jail for drug possession, and those were my only charges. They were nonviolent offenses. I wasn't driving under the influence. I wasn't distributing drugs. Really, my only crime was addiction. And so I'm a big believer and a big proponent, and a big message of my campaign the whole time has been that addiction is not a crime, and that we need progressive supplemental criminal justice reform to be able to solve a lot of the inequalities and issues that our society's facing. As I mentioned, I went to county prison for a couple months. I was fortunate. Some people go a lot longer. The day that I was released, I actually had to go to Dauphin County, where I had a pending court date, and I thought that I was going to be doing another 1 to 2 years. And I was fortunate enough that didn't happen. But when you get out of prison and you're saddled with a criminal record that lasts your lifetime, there's so much stigma behind it. Tens of thousands of dollars in fines. I lost my job. I almost lost my home. I almost lost my marriage. I almost lost my family, all my friends. So when you try to come up and rebuild your life, I'll tell you what, it's a really, really hard thing to do. You don't have a license, but you have court mandated costs where if you don't find a way to supplement that income, if you don't find a way to meet your fines and costs, they will actually put you back in prison. And that's where I believe a lot of injustice actually comes from. So one of the biggest things I want to do when I go to Harrisburg is, challenge this whole culture of greed and corruption that exists, where we have for-profit prisons, private prisons in Pennsylvania. We have, so much revenue generation to municipal governments, to state governments behind continually incarcerating nonviolent drug offenders. I want to see the money reallocated from the police forces so that they can actually prosecute violent criminals, because nonviolent people don't deserve to be locked in cages. And that's really one of my biggest causes that I've been fighting for, something I feel very passionate about. Overall, that's what inspired me to run for office. I have, a couple other things that have really shaped me and molded me into it. But it was in that rebound in my life where I started to advocate for things. My father, when I was 5 years old, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. So I had to watch my dad from a young age suffer from a neurologically degenerative disease. Well, he was on one drug after the next. But ironically enough, he found most of his relief through medical marijuana. So in 2013, 2014, I actually started reaching out to the current representative who I'm running against. And she offered the same old arguments that it was the gateway drug. And I provided research that debunked the gateway drug theory, but that wasn't good enough because her conservative bosses in Harrisburg told her that it wasn't a policy that she would be able to get behind. I actually asked her the question after I told her my story. Do you believe that people like my father, who paid taxes their entire life, was an outstanding citizen, active within their community, do you believe that people like that deserve to be in prison? And I got no answer. So that tells you a little bit about who I'm running against. Marijuana legalization, when I helped advocate in the state for medical marijuana legalization, that was really my first active pathway into politics. That was how I kind of first started to navigate it and pay attention to some of the legislation happening here on a local level and in Harrisburg. And to be honest, I was just disgusted by the representatives that we have that take so much money year after year from the big pharmaceutical corporations, but they want to turn around and incarcerate people for marijuana related offenses. So that's a little bit about who I am, what I believe in, and how I ended up here on the program tonight.
So would you say, you kind of led me straight into my, what I guess would be my other first question, my 1 and 1A question. Is it really that the marijuana decriminalization or legalization, depending on which, semantical word, I know there is a technical difference, but whichever tact you want to take with it, and I'll let you explain yourself. I won't do it for you, but is it really that particular issue that led you into this into this adventure, and I don't use the word adventure to make it light. I mean, running for office is a heavy responsibility. It's a big deal. But is it that issue that put you over the edge? Is it that which said, this is serious? I mean, I need to not just write letters and push from the outside, but I have to get in. I have to be in it.
So yeah, that's a good question. That was the catalyst. That was what inspired me and drove me into running for public office, because after I started being more active with my legislators, after I started paying more attention to the legislation, then I started paying a lot more attention to who we elect on a local level, to who our party leaders are, to who the political bosses are in Harrisburg. And I just saw how broken it was. And I didn't see, being a father to 3 young children, I didn't see a big future. And to be honest, I tell people this story quite a few times. I didn't really want to run for office, to be honest. I wanted to get involved. I wanted to get behind a candidate here in Northern Lancaster County who, I could kind of help curtail policy and some of my broad experiences and just be an integral part of a team. And I tried that. I got involved in some local campaigns. I was pretty passionate about, getting behind somebody. And I kind of felt like I was just waiting around forever. And I felt like I was waiting around for this person to come around who was never going to come around until I had a conversation with my dad one night. And he asked me, he said, "Do you ever think maybe you're that person?" And up until that point, it never really crossed my mind. So the marijuana legalization is definitely, I always say that that's the catalyst, that and my own experiences with the criminal justice system. But it didn't take me too long till I started doing research and I looked at, who funds, the prime. I would say the establishment politicians. I started looking at who was funding them, what type of policy they were prioritizing. And like I said, I didn't see a future. And I know that we need to keep electing working class people to actually make a real difference.
You mentioned, well, you said you did the research. Before I drag you off of this, because my mind, I'm a human being. My mind I'll get scattered, and I tend to jump about.
In the same way,
I tend to jump about a little bit too. We tend to go down rabbit holes here. I tend to pride myself a little bit on not overly scripting and overly preparing this. I pride myself on the fact that you and I are having a conversation that good, decent folks from all political spectrums, as I have invited people from all political spectrums on this program, and they do watch and they do listen, whether they want to admit it or not is a different topic. But before I drag you out into prisons, because I want to make sure that I recommend that. In fact, I grabbed myself scrap paper so that I don't forget. But because we do spend more money in the Commonwealth, inside the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we spend more money on prisons, and a good chunk of that is for-profit prisons than we do education. So I don't want to forget that. But when we talk about, you said you've done a lot of research on marijuana specifically.
Yep.
What in your research do people let me make it more broad. Why don't I back up and make it more broad? What have you found in your research that you believe people need to know?
So marijuana is not a gateway drug. A 12-year University of Pittsburgh study debunked that, and it actually showed that alcohol is the gateway drug. That's actually what leads most people down the path of addiction. I found that, keeping marijuana illegal helps no one. Okay, it creates a thriving
keeping it illegal helps no.
So yeah, keeping.
And I don't want to shock you, John. Here, I know you're sitting down. At least I hope you're sitting down. I don't want to shock you. I don't want to shock you, and I don't want to shock anyone in the audience. But alcohol is legal.
Absolutely.
It is.
Alcohol is illegal.
And essentially, within Pennsylvania, by the way, through the state store system, it is at least tangentially state sanctioned.
Absolutely. Yeah, which is something I definitely oppose going forward with recreational marijuana legalization. We need to ensure that we do not adopt the state store model. We need to make sure that we allow small businesses, communities of color to really be actively engaged in some of the revenue generation that will occur from it. So I'm back to some of the research. It's not a gateway drug. Alcohol is more destructive. It causes more accidents, more domestic violence incidents every year. No one has ever overdosed in the history of humanity from marijuana. It's a very non-toxic, non-lethal drug. The impairment is nothing like it is to alcohol. We're concerned about people driving under the influence. That's not what legalization will entail. We'll have to find a way to keep people from behind the wheel, but the impairment just doesn't line up. The research indicates that. If I could find it in front of me right now, there was actually research in Colorado that indicated that a lot of the auto insurance companies were actually pro marijuana legalization based on their own research that they conducted. In states that have legalized, we've seen huge reductions in opioid related overdoses and even opioid related usage rates. It drops by, we've seen reductions in juvenile marijuana usage, which, if we're being serious about protecting our children, we don't want people, under 21 years old to consume marijuana during the years that their brains and bodies are developing. So if we really want to get serious about keeping it out of our children's hands, then we need to legalize, because all the research indicates that there's going to be a reduction. We can generate millions and millions and millions of dollars in tax revenue. We can create tens of thousands of good paying jobs for Pennsylvanians. I mean, if we just look back at some of the history from the alcohol prohibition ushered in one of the most violent eras in American history, and all the murders and all the back alley deals and everything that were going on ended when alcohol became legal. And marijuana will be the same way. When we bring it out of the back alleys and we put it in well-lit, well-protected, well-regulated dispensaries, all of that black market-driven violence will deteriorate, much like it has in Colorado and other states. I know we've seen a lot of that still in California, but that comes a lot from their excessive tax rates that kind of, drove everybody to still stay in the black market. So the one thing I think we really have to be careful with here in Pennsylvania is we have to make sure that it's a system and authentic legislation that will deter people and incentivize becoming legal and putting it in dispensaries. So that's a little bit about what I've, studied and found out.
Is alcohol the most accurate analogy to marijuana, have you found?
In what regards do you mean that?
As far as policies, effects on the body, debunking bad information, what people are afraid of, just all the way around. It seems to me that when we get drug into this argument of either legalization or decriminalization, it really is alcohol that seems to be the most accurate analogy, the most direct line between alcohol and marijuana. It's not between cocaine and marijuana. It's not between opioids and marijuana. It's between alcohol and marijuana, because alcohol is legal and to a great extent in the Commonwealth state sanctioned because they sell it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would just second that by saying that the only reason that marijuana is illegal in the first place is because of systemic racism, is because of fabricated lies. I mean, it actually all started from Harry Anslinger, who, basically hid behind all these racial stereotypes and everything. I mean, there are so many different conspiracies we could get into as to why marijuana was criminalized in the first place, but none of the reasons that were proposed at the time were backed by any science. It was just all by racial misinformation, accusations, and really points that didn't uphold moving forward. So I think that's something we have to look back at, is whoever created criminalization lied to everybody in the first place.
And what big money have you found is behind stopping the legalization or decriminalization of marijuana?
So obviously it's the private prison system. I mean, and honestly, there's a lot of states exclusively that act kind of behind the curtains, because like I said, it's a massive revenue generation scheme to them. One of the easiest ways that they can violate your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights is by citing, hey, I smell marijuana. They've hid behind that for generations, and they can violate, your right to be safe in your home and secure in your vehicles, and they can, doctor up a lot of charges that way. So the money that I've seen really flowing into spending billions and billions of dollars, another no-brainer is the pharmaceutical industrial complex. That's
where I was leaning. I was heading in that direction.
There is no doubt that when states legalize and regulate recreational marijuana usage, that the pharmaceutical companies see a major hit. I mean, medical marijuana can treat so many different ailments and diseases, oftentimes more effectively than some of these widely marketed synthetic pharmaceutical drugs that cause more side effects than they actually fix in the first place. So a lot of people have been turning to medical marijuana and seeing a lot more relief, whether we're talking about treating seizures, people battling the side effects of cancer, multiple sclerosis. It's actually been proven to help with diabetes, with, to regulate your blood sugar, for weight loss. I mean, for anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's going to be a huge hit into the pharmaceutical companies. And they make no mistake that they're spending billions of dollars to lobby to keep it illegal.
Absolutely. Into pain, cataracts. John mentioned the side effects of cancer. Not just the pain, the weakness, and the low energy, but the stimulate appetite. Yeah, I know we consider it all a joke. Somebody smokes a joint and they go get a bag of Doritos, but okay, there is the stimulation of appetite to keep you, keep the energy up and so on.
Which is a medicinal effect to a lot of people.
Yeah, it just is. Schizophrenia, depression. The amount of money that the pharmaceutical industry has thrown at this, and for me, coming from spending such a good chunk of my life in New Jersey, which is one of the pharmaceutical, world centers of pharmaceuticals.
Right.
Let's be honest, and they throw a ton of money at elected officials at all levels. You wouldn't think that the pharmaceutical industry had an interest in school board and local town council races. Well, you haven't seen them spend money. They spend lots of money, even on those races at such local, dare I say, local levels. You wouldn't think so. I have to say, John, I hadn't considered, and I had not thought of the way and the methods by which municipalities would not want to see the legalization and decriminalization for the way that you said, an officer, and it scares me to think that this is taking place. And I certainly would not want to paint all officers with a broad brush, and I don't believe you do either. No. But an officer sticks his head, pulls someone over on the side of the road. Can I see your license registration? Go, and gives it the old cursory sniff, and says, "Oh, smell marijuana," and there goes your Fourth Amendment and Fifth Amendment rights.
Especially if you have prior convictions, because as soon as you get pulled over or they ran your plates, they say, marijuana possession 3 years ago. Boom. If they want to, it's right up to the window. And most of the time it gets upheld and overlooked because a lot of people don't realize that they can file to have those charges dismissed right away. A lot of people don't understand how the justice system works, that they have to have a warrant or probable cause. And it's really shaky now with legal hemp and legal medical marijuana. Is it actually probable cause? Recently a federal judge ruled in Pennsylvania that it wasn't probable cause anymore. It went to appeals court, and I believe that they struck it down. So I think that's going to be a battle for years, where eventually people aren't going to be able to get pulled out of their car or investigated further for the odor of marijuana.
5:31 Eastern time in the United States, on the eastern seaboard of the United States, wherever you are listening around the world, whatever time zone you are in. 5:31 in the Eastern time zone of the United States. This is the Kennedy Effect for 11 October 2020. Wherever you may be on Facebook, whatever page, whatever group, whatever timeline, whatever insert proper Facebook term here you are listening on, we thank you very much for being here. If you are with us live, watching or listening in the background, thank you so very much for that. If you are watching the recording, we thank you for that as well. You are welcome here. You have a home here. Wherever you fall on the political spectrum, you are respected here. We thank you for being here. If you are with our Revolution Pennsylvania, our Revolution National, if you are at the Indivisible Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Democratic Politics, Turn PA Blue, any of the myriad of pages that we share the program to, we thank you for being there. It is our home group page, That Other Side of Information, where the chat is open. You can send us a hello, a comment, a question, or just hang out, and we'll see you in there, and you can interact with John and or myself. I'm here babbling the entire program. You may not want to interact with me, but you might want to get to John. You can do that at our home group page, That Other Side of Information. Hot101.net family, thank you for being there. I am proud, very, very proud, humbled, and honored to be part of the Hot101.net family, the ever-growing and expanding Hot101.net family. If you have not been to the new home website page for Hot101.net, go check it out. It has recently been completely redesigned. It looks fantastic, and it is extremely easy to navigate and use. Hot101.net. You can also listen to Hot101.net through the Apple App Store. Get the Apple App Store app if you have an Apple device. If you have an Android device, go to the Google Play Store. Or if you have the TuneIn Radio app, just search for Hot101.net. If you have a business, a product, a service, something that you just want to get out to the entire planet, you can do so by emailing us at thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. That email address is also there for you for anything revolving around the world that is the Kennedy Effect. thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. And also later in the program, we will be opening the phone line for you to call in. You know how I am with phone calls, folks. Don't let me down. Come on, we need you. Give us a ring. We'll open up the phone line later in the program. So since I have not forgotten, because I was wise enough to actually leave myself a note, John, let me get back to this. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania spends more total dollars on prisons, including for-profit prisons, which means privately run by private corporations for the express written consent and purpose of making profit, than she does on education. Tell me what you think of that. Just a very general question. What do you think of that? I will leave it. Let me just lay that out there for you to expand upon.
I think it's terrible. I think that we need to strive as citizens of Pennsylvania that are, envisioning a brighter future. We need to usher in justice. And when you can make money, basically like having stocks, how many cots do you have filled tonight? When you can profit that way, that is the antithesis of everything that America stood for, everything that Pennsylvania stood for. Pennsylvania was founded upon the ideals of freedom, tolerance, and innovation. Well, we're the 5th most populated state in America, and we have one of the highest prison populations. That's not freedom to me. And I don't think it's reflective of our founding values or who we are. The school to prison pipeline needs to be dissolved immediately. We have a state and state legislators and the majority party in power in Harrisburg that will gladly allocate funds to incarceration and not properly allocate funds to education. I think that's a major issue when we look at some of the funding models that occur, in cities like Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh. We need to invest in our children. We need to invest in their future. We need to, I say it all the time, we need to end the war on drugs, because nonviolent drug offenders do not belong in prison. I think that we have to totally readapt, reimagine, how we're going to proceed and go forward. That's kind of my general response to that. We need to do everything we can to keep people out of prison. Again, it was built for violent people.
Let's dig a little deeper on that, John, because you used a word earlier in our first half hour that I want to dig a little deeper on. I want to see if you and I can expand on it more. And
Sure.
That word is debunk. I want to debunk a term that is dumped on, that is shoveled on Democrats, Democratic office holders, Democratic nominees, Democratic candidates, and the Democratic Party generally speaking, and that the party generally at times does not do a good enough job of debunking that. When we stand and say we need to reallocate these funds, or we need to look at this funding, study this funding, reduce, dare we even say, reduce the amount of money that we spend on this particular thing, we certainly are taking a kicking in the teeth of it right now when it comes to the dramatically poorly worded defund the police argument.
Right.
When you say that we need to look at the amount of money that we spend on incarceration, or I'm old enough that I can remember when we used to call them correctional facilities.
Some of them still are.
Way back in the old days when we used to call them correctional facilities, when we used to think that, or dare we even say rehabilitational facilities, that term seems to be used only on medical facilities now at this point. But can you tell me, very leading question to be perfectly fair, but can you tell me why that is not a quote unquote soft on crime stance?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm glad that you brought all that up. I actually wanted to touch on that. I remember when I was through the height of my opioid addiction and I ended up in prison, I finally thought to myself, as I got dropped off at the gates there, all right, this is it. Time to get yourself in line. I'll go in here, I'll detox in a, hopefully controlled environment. I'll have access to counselors. I'll have like you said, correction. I was at a county correctional facility. That's what it was called. Well, when I went in there, I'll tell you what I saw. There wasn't any correction. The correctional officers treated you less than human, like you were less than a human being. In fact, you were less than a piece of dirt on the ground to them. So I recognized that right away, that there was no correction in there. There were no classes. People with medical conditions couldn't get the help that they needed. It was absolutely disgusting.
Was the facility that you were in privately run or publicly run?
I want to say it was privately run. I'm pretty confident that that's the case. I'll actually look it up while we're on the call together and let you know, because there was a lot of rumors. I mean, there's no doubt that there was a lot of talk between people that are in and out of there all the time, that the probation officers and the judges and the police officers colluded to drive the prison population higher. But back to my point before I forget it, I was trying to detox and I looked around me, and I'll tell you what, Jeff, I was surrounded by more drugs in prison than I was on the streets. So that changed my whole logic immediately. I thought, you know what, if we can't even keep drugs out of prison, how are we being tough on crime by throwing people into jail that are possessing drugs and putting them around drugs? That's not a soft on crime stage at all. Keeping nonviolent offenders out of prison and prioritizing the treatment of them. Okay. That's actually being tougher on crime, because you're actually taking a stance to reduce the crime. When you throw nonviolent offenders into prison, they learn how to be better criminals. They learn a lot of hate and resentment towards the system that they often feel forgot about. They feel forgotten when they're in prison. So I often say that correctional facilities are a cesspool for career criminals, because a lot of people come out of there without opportunity, with the lifetime stigmas and everything. So anybody who says that keeping nonviolent offenders or defunding the police slightly, I hate that term too, is soft on crime, that is nothing more than some political narrative framing that is going on to try to get a bunch of right-wing extremists reelected in America.
And do we not have more than enough evidence that programs like that, I believe Seattle has a program like this. If you send a drug counselor, a social worker out on the road with police officer, where that interdiction is made at the point of arrest, that we save the system money. And we're not just talking a few bucks, we're talking tens of millions of dollars. That if at the point of arrest, someone who was in the condition that you were in, and I'm not drawing anything out of you that you haven't admitted, that we save the system literally tens of millions of dollars, that instead of tossing you into the situation that you just described, we get you to a treatment facility, not a law enforcement, not a prison system, but a treatment system. We have the studies that show that financial savings, that fiscal savings, is there.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. So the only thing that leads me to believe is that the people that are writing the laws are well aware of that, because there's been plenty of studies. So the people that are writing the laws and the lobbyists that are influencing that legislation, they don't want to save the taxpayer money. They don't want to be fiscally responsible. That's all propaganda to get them reelected. What they actually want to do is to funnel the money to these private prison systems. That's my belief on it. And I'm proud to be from Lancaster County, because what you just spoke about, we actually have one of the most progressive programs going on here in the entire country. And it's exactly what you just talked about. It's called the Second Chances Program. And it was a partnership between local police departments and Blueprints for Addiction Recovery, which is a recovery, they're recovery specialists here in Lancaster County. And the same exact thing happens. There's an addiction counselor on call, where they're riding around the police officer. When somebody has a problem, they offer them, look, let's get you into treatment tonight. You won't have these charges, you won't have to go to prison. And they're giving people the objective and the ultimatum that they need, because I can tell you, if I had that objective and ultimatum, I wouldn't have taken more than a fraction of a second to answer, to take me into treatment, because so many people want that. People want to go to treatment, but when you're actually given that ultimatum where you have to choose between prison and actual correction, I think that's our future. I think the Second Chance program should be implemented nationally. I think that should be implemented nationally, and it would result in massive fiscal savings for America as a whole.
So you kind of answered the next question I want to ask, but let me see if we can take it a step further. Let's talk about the party opposite us. And we haven't spoken about your opponent yet, but we should. Because it'll help people identify the race. There's the old campaign adage that you don't give your opponent too much press, but we should do that so people, can identify the race that you're in. John is in the 37th Pennsylvania House District. Folks can give it a DuckDuckGo if you don't want your history traced, or most people will use Google or whatever search engine of your choice, but DuckDuckGo is the one that won't trace your internet search history. It's duck is in the animal, the duck, DUCK, DuckDuckGo. But let's take that a step further, John. You did kind of answer the question, so I might be forcing you to repeat yourself, but let's take that a step further. Let's talk a little bit about the party opposite us. The party of supposed small government and supposed fiscal responsibility. So we have all the studies, repeated studies from across the country. And like you said, this is not a program that has been implemented nationally. And I do not know of, and please correct me if I'm wrong. I want to learn things that I don't know, but correct me if I'm wrong, if you happen to know. I do not know of any entire state or commonwealth that has installed this program, but I do know of counties and municipalities that have done so. So we Likewise. know that this program saves money. And again, not just hundreds or thousands or even hundreds of thousands or even millions, but literally tens of millions of dollars. So the party opposite us that claims to be the party of fiscal responsibility and that claims to be the party of small government is soundly, roundly, and completely A to Z, top to bottom, against these programs. So why would they be against these programs?
Going back to the point that I said earlier, that they're not the party of fiscal responsibility or limited government. Because let's be real, the number one thing.
Then that would make that I'm going to answer the rest of the question for you, and you don't have to step in it if you don't want to. That would make them the party of profit.
Absolutely.
A big corporate profit. Because
Absolutely.
these are not small little mom and pop companies, folks. These are not small mom and pop local corner store companies that are running prisons. These are large national corporations. These are not even state-based companies that are running prisons. These are large national, some international corporations, Fortune 500 corporations that are running these prisons. Think about what we're talking about. Think about what John and I are talking about right now. If you are a person, if you have a family member, a friend, in the position that John found himself in, you are not being directed to the treatment or attention that you need or deserve. You are simply thrown into a building where you are extracted for profit. You are a profit center. You are a money-making opportunity as long as you are breathing and as long as you are inside that building. Never to receive any of the attention or help that you need.
That's the sad truth.
Think about what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and the whole other aspect of it too is, especially this year during the year of the pandemic and the lockdowns, we've seen drug use increase, substance abuse disorder has skyrocketed, suicides have skyrocketed, overdose deaths have skyrocketed. So in fact, this year is going to generate more revenue for a lot of those hyper corrupt institutions. And I'll tell you what, if we've ever heard more about personal liberties and infringement of freedoms as we have this year, so it's not okay for the governor to lock down the state, in the middle of a pandemic, because they're pro liberty, but it is okay for them to support the continual mass incarceration of Pennsylvanians and fellow Americans. And that's what I find really broken about all of it, because I do believe in personal liberty. I do believe in personal freedoms, and I don't just say that because I pander to my base. And that's what I think the party opposite to us does, is it's all just inflaming and enraging their base, and it's all political theatrics. Because if you actually study their policies, like my opponent, for instance, like you said, it's all about profit. You start down at her campaign finance report and you look at drug company after drug company after drug company. You look at fossil fuel company after fossil fuel company. It's no wonder she votes against anything that would, help us rein in climate change or lower greenhouse gases or keep people out of prison, or, that's where we're at. It's all about profit. And that's been another really difficult thing for me to see how deep that rabbit hole actually goes.
Is this a topic that you find look, this is a very different when I have this conversation, when I have other guests on the program who have been candidates in past cycles, it's easy to ask them, what is different about this election cycle compared to this one? Trying to campaign like this in the middle of a pandemic, and they have a range of experiences to compare it to. You don't. You haven't run for anything before, so you've only ever campaigned really in a pandemic. So we can't really fall back on a series of experiences, pandemic and non-pandemic. But when you campaign in a variety of ways that you have attempted to campaign in this most odd of years. Is this a topic that you find people that it resonates with them, that they can grasp, that they get round their heads?
Absolutely. I mean, it's been one of the easiest topics to break through. And I think we talked about a little bit before. I'm in a heavily conservative district, but I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people who are fiscally responsible here, who actually believe in some of the principles that we've spoke about. So when I can kind of humanize everything and put it in perspective for them, and when we get right down into the nitty gritty about saving taxpayers money, I mean, to a lot of people, it's a no-brainer. There's a lot of stigma behind it. There's a lot of misinformation. The right goes so hard to try to inflame that and make it worse. But yeah, it is something that resonates with people and they can recognize. Absolutely.
Because I think marijuana still has marijuana, and then as you draw the line straight to prisons, again, it's why I wanted to ask you about the soft on crime, fear, everybody be afraid, we're going to open up the prison doors and let everyone escape, Batman at Arkham type, situation.
That's the narrative.
It is the narrative, and it's a lot easier to scare everyone than it is to explain everything. It's one of the inherent disadvantages that Democratic candidates have, is that we actually have to explain things in more than 3 syllables. It doesn't all fit in a bumper sticker. And that's why I ask my question, is that when you explain this to folks in several sentences, when you get that opportunity, folks that may not be traditional Democrats or independents or perhaps even Republicans, when you get the opportunity to actually say more than what fits on a bumper sticker, the general reaction that you are getting from folks is what?
Very, very positive. So whether I'm speaking with conservatives,
they get it.
Absolutely. Whether it's conservatives or, conservative Republicans or independents, I always start the conversation by humanizing it. I tell my story, kind of like we did in the beginning, what I've been through, who I am, what I'm doing now with my life, and they'll say to me, wow, I never would have thought that about you in a million years. And then we can kind of just trace it right down through the conversation like we had. And people are very, very receptive to it. Had a lot of really positive interactions. People from the other side of the political spectrum encouraging me, writing me really, really nice things in my inbox every day. John, we're proud of what you're doing. We don't agree with you politically on everything, but we think you'd be a really strong voice for our community. I have a daughter, who's 23 years old, and she overdosed last year and she's trying to rebuild her life. People like her need to have a voice. That's been my general consensus to it. Of course, I still get some of the nastiness because, my opponent, for sure, she has voted against any type of legislation that would tear down any of the stigmas or actually, help people solve the addiction and the opioid crisis. So she's very hostile to it in general, but all in all, we've had a really great response.
Let's get a little technical if we could. Tell me about your district. Tell me about the 37th district, where geographically, the voter registration breakdown, the independents in your district, because I do it all the time. We tend to get a little, we tend to only think about the folks who are registered and declared in a party, but what about the folks who aren't? Tell me about your district. Okay,
so 37th district, Northern Lancaster County, arguably one of the most gerrymandered districts in the entire county. I wish I could pull up the map of it. It is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we have 7 school districts, and we have, in some of the school districts alone, we only have 1 or 2 precincts. So it makes it so hard for people to even understand, hey, do I live in your district or not? It's been very hard for people that don't understand the specifics, the geographical outlines to it, whether or not I'm actually running to be their state representative or not. So it's so gerrymandered, and you can tell that was done so that people like my opponent can inherently retain power. It's a very conservative district. The demographics are changing in it. When I say it's a tough district,
let me stop you there, John, because this is important. I'm going to ask you a tough question here.
Okay.
this might be a semantical argument, but I want to ask you this question.
Sure.
Is it a conservative district or is it a Republican district?
That's open to interpretation. The Republicans have a heavy voter registration advantage here. They do, but Lancaster County alone is the number one county for new Democratic registrations in Pennsylvania. I've lived in this district specifically for 8 years, and I can tell you it is transforming. There are younger, more diverse people relocating here, and the whole culture of it is changing. I want to say we're probably 58 to 60% Republican here. So we have.
I find, and it's it's more of a personal experience. You certainly don't have to. Your experience may be very different. You certainly don't have to agree with me. When I have extended conversations with self-identified Republicans, self-identified conservatives, because there are not really many people who can justify that label that they place on themselves. And those are fighting words to a lot of Republicans and conservatives, especially folks who are listening. And again, you're welcome to call us. You're welcome to send comments in the chat. You can email, whatever you'd like to do. Especially my good dear friend Robert Smith was kind enough to be a guest on this program at one point, and he was sadly not able to answer this question. And he remains my friend to this day, and I am honored by it. When you corner them, for the lack of a better word, and try to get them to justify their allegiance to that party or the old Reagan conservative movement, especially on an economic reasoning, they can't give you one. So I ask you that question, and again, I'm almost making it sound like I'm putting you on trial here. I'm not. What justifications, what reasons, are we talking about just, well, my dad was a conservative and a Republican, and my mom was, and my grandfather was, and his before him? When you say that it's a heavily conservative district, do you have any indication as to why, other than the gerrymandering part?
I mean, it's because the Republicans have held the power here, for the entire history of representation in the county, and especially since the Civil War. It's absolutely a generational thing. It's been passed down from one generation to the next. A lot of people here believe strongly in traditional families. They stand in opposition to same-sex marriages, which is something that I don't, because that's a little bit of my early years of libertarianism, live and let live. I don't think that should affect anybody. Traditional families, what does it matter? This is the picture I circulate on when we're going door to door and handing out, and it doesn't mention Democrat on there anywhere. And one of the reasons that my campaign has been so effective is because I've very openly spoken with people. We've knocked on Republican and independent doors, and we've told them, listen, I personally don't believe in the two-party system. I think a lot of people get disenfranchised that way. I believe that the best way that we can change the two-party system is from within. But I was a registered independent for almost all of my adult life until over the last couple of years when I got activated with some of the working class Democratic campaigns here in the district. So people that I'm having conversations with, there is that whole group of people, like you said, that it was generationally inherited, and they really can't define why they're conservative other than the abortion rights and the traditional family marriage. A lot of people that I've spoken with this year told me, I'm a registered Republican, but I'll look at both people. But one of the biggest problems is we haven't really had a Democrat run a progressive, strong, high energetic campaign here in the district. You know what I mean? It was like they paint Democrats as cartoon characters a lot. In some of the areas that we've knocked doors on this year, they've never had a Democrat show up at their door. So who are they waiting for? Bugs Bunny? I don't know. But when they hear us and we actually have a legitimate conversation with them, it tears down a lot of those barriers. So I think a lot of people are just conservative or simply Republican because that's just the way it's been for so long.
Is your district a particularly wealthy district?
It has wealthy pockets to it, absolutely. So some of the boroughs that we have, so it's highly rural. I have a really weird district because we have some of the most rural expanses, a lot of farmland in northern Lancaster County. We have a boatload of smaller townships and a couple boroughs. And there is poverty-stricken pockets within the boroughs, absolutely, and in some of the rural areas. But land in Lancaster County alone is very, very expensive. And there is a lot of wealth within the district, absolutely.
6:02 in the Eastern time zone of the United States. We are thrilled that you are with us wherever you are watching and listening, however you are watching and listening. 2 minutes after 6 p.m. in the Eastern time zone of the United States, this is the Kennedy Effect for 11 October 2020. Wherever you are with us on Facebook, over the 50 different pages and groups and now national outlets that we have shared the program to. If you are with us live or watching on a recorded version, thank you very, very much for being here, each and every single one of you, and from wherever on the political spectrum and wherever geographically you may come from. Thank you very, very much for being here. It is our home group page. If you are with us live, our home group page titled That Other Side of Information, where we will see your name, your comments, your questions, and we will welcome you into the interactive chat that takes place during the program each and every time that we are live. You are welcome there. We can take your comments and questions. To our friends and family at hot101.net, sisters and brothers, welcome again, and thank you. I am honored to be part of the hot101.net family. If you have not been to the hot101.net homepage, you need to get there. It has recently been completely redesigned. It looks fantastic and it is extremely easy to use. Just go to the main website page at hot101.net. We are on there live, the audio version of the program around the globe. And we are heard in countries all over the planet, and we are happy that you are with us. It is an extremely attractive page, really looks good, and very, very easy to use. If you cannot go to the main website page, you can listen to hot101.net through any device. You can stream it on laptops, tablets, phones, smart speakers, any way that you listen. You can listen also through the apps. There are apps for your Apple device at the Apple App Store. There's an app for your Android devices through the Google Play Store, or if you already have the TuneIn Radio app, if you choose to do it that way, just search for hot101.net. If you have a business, a product, a service, anything that you want to promote literally around the globe, or anything show related, the home email address, the email address for all things related to the Kennedy Effect is thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. You can hit us with questions, show topics, guest referrals, or to promote your business, product, or service, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. This is the hour when we will open the phone line. I will put it on the screen if you are watching us live. I will put the phone number on. You will be able to see it, and I will be giving it to you ad infinitum throughout the remainder of the program. Our guest is my friend and the Honorable and Democratic nominee and candidate for the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives from the 37th District. That is the Lancaster County area. Yes, that's Amish country. If you're not familiar with it, it is generally thought of as Amish country. That is John Padora, and we get back to John right now. And that is his dog. And there we go. And we get back to him right now. John, you were very open and have been very open about your own personal story as you have run for this office. I don't think there's a way to do it without telling your own personal story. But when you tell folks your story, regardless of what end of the political spectrum they may be on, how have you been received generally?
Very well. Very, very well. So resonated really well with independent voters. Young Republicans are happy to speak with us because they believe in a generational change of power that needs to occur. Even a lot of Republican voters have perceived us really well because they're not happy with who we've had for the last 8 years because she's a ghost within our community. They've seen me out even before I decided to run for office. Many people have told me they've seen me out in the community with my family, with my children. They know I'm a real person. They know I'm a working class person. People want that. People want blue collar workers. People want people who are active within their community to serve them in state government. Whether or not we have different political ideological differences, the things that I stress to people are that I will always show up for you and I will always listen to you. Unlike my opponent who only panders to her base. She doesn't care about Democrats and independent voters because she's never had to. I care about all people. And I think that's what really sets me apart. So all in all, I can say we've had some really positive responses from the community as a whole.
A couple of weeks ago, we had Daniel Smith on the program. He's running against Daryl Metcalf.
Yep.
And he told folks straight out that Daryl Metcalf has told the folks in his district that if you don't vote for him, then he does not represent you, period, end of story. You do not count to him. He does not represent you. You can go suck wind. That's the end of that. Is that essentially what is happening in your district?
So
your opponent may not have actually said that out loud, but is that
right.
basically the type of representation that's happening in your district?
Absolutely. Daryl Metcalf is just a lot more, forward about it. He's so far right, he doesn't care. So whereas my opponent has said things like that to people, when the microphones aren't on and people are well aware of it, but she's literally a ghost within our community. Like Daryl has a little bit more of a presence, especially to his base, whereas Mindy literally has none other than her little clique in her hometown, that are all people that she went to high school with because, she's lived in the district her entire life. Her husband was a judge within the district. So that's why she naturally fell right into the position. So yeah, it's very, very similar. I always just say that ghost within the community and doesn't even take the time to listen to you if you have different ideology.
So tell us, again, campaign strategy would tell you don't talk too much about the opponent. You don't give them free press, but we should ask and we should illustrate who is your opponent. Give us a little background on who you're running against.
Sure. So my opponent is 4-term State Representative Mindy Fee. She's resided here in the district her entire life. Her mother is on borough council. Her husband, who was actually a very nice person, was a judge here in Manheim. He was known for being a compassionate judge. He was actually next in line for the state representative position in 2012, and he died suddenly from a heart attack. And so I have absolutely nothing bad to say in that regards, but I can say that I don't believe just because your husband was the next runner-up that automatically made you eligible for office. She claims, that she's a fighter here for the farmers, but I can tell you, she's not supporting the local farmers. She supports the corporate agricultural farming operations that are running family-owned farms into the brink of extinction. My opponent is primarily funded from big gas, big oil, big pharmaceutical companies, and a bunch of Republican and right-wing dark money PACs nationally and statewide. This year, she didn't have an opportunity to raise as much money. So her and I, so far to my knowledge, are pretty parallel with the money that we've raised this year. But she had $40,000 in her bank account to go into this race. I didn't have it. I've turned down corporate PAC money from day one. We're getting money from labor unions, from the farmers, from teachers, nurses, blue collar workers. And we have a lot of across the aisle support here, which is something that she doesn't have. We've had a lot of Republicans even donate to us financially and support us that way. So I don't have a whole lot to say about Mindy because she hasn't really done a whole lot. There's one thing before you lapse me on there I would like to bring up. Fox 43 just did an article recently about, comparing us, the two candidates together. And I found it so funny because one of my biggest issues that I've been advocating for is property tax reform. Well, suddenly that's her biggest issue going into the next term, but she's had 8 years to do it. And she's been telling all of her Republican voters every year, I'm going to reform property taxes, and never does a dang thing. But they listed her achievements, if I can find it here, in the last 2 years, and it was absolutely hilarious. So,
No worries. Roll through. We're good.
Yeah.
Better to look. Better to have the information accurate. Don't worry. I can always talk. That's why I do the program.
her achievements from the last 2 years in office have been exempt to animal production building, or have been to exempt animal production buildings from the state sales and use tax, as well as bipartisan legislation to allow public schools to outsource dentists for dental screenings. When I read that, my first thought was, you have got to be kidding me. That out of all the advanced and complex socioeconomic issues that our Commonwealth's facing, you're worried about outsourcing dentists in public schools and, exempting. It's like, that's what she does. She doesn't produce any meaningful legislation. In fact, a lot of people have told me she's just simply like a partisan ventriloquist to keep the seat red Republican held, and that she doesn't really have an opinion. Her political leadership in Harrisburg says, hey, put your name on this bill. Don't put your name on that bill. Hey, don't debate, John, because you have a lot more to lose from it. I mean, that's been my argument from the beginning, is that she's not independent. She doesn't think for herself. She's part of the machine, part of the establishment. And it's very apparent in most conversations that people have had with her.
Well, that can lead me straight into a question, because we've had several candidates visit us on the program whose incumbent Republican opponents are exactly as you described. They do not. Last week, we went through the process of explaining we did a little civics lesson, described what it means to be the primary sponsor of legislation, what it means to be the co-sponsor of legislation. Let me quickly review for those of you who may not have been with us last week. And if you weren't with us last week, shame on you. Should have been. And I will not take any demerits from you at this point, but I will going forward. To be within the context of government or civics point of view, to be the primary sponsor of legislation would be the following. To try to break it down and make it somewhat, to make it very, very, very basic. John has an idea for legislation. He has an idea for something that he believes needs to be literally put into law. And he and his staff, one would think also with the help of, John is not a lawyer, one would think with legal advice as well, literally writes a piece of legislation, writes a law. That makes him the primary sponsor, the sponsor. He decides to come to me. My office is right down the hall, probably nicer than his, but he comes right down the hall. I'm being a goof, obviously. He comes right down the hall and he says, look, I have this piece of legislation. I feel very strongly about it. Here's what it says. Here's why I believe in it. And I'd really like your support on this. I think the addition of your name to this would be very powerful, and I think it would help move it along. And I say, you're right. I think this is very important. This needs to pass, and I'm with you on this. And I lend my support to it. I sign my name to it. I become a co-sponsor. I haven't done any of the legwork. I haven't done any of the real heavy lifting here. John's done all that. He's the sponsor. As the co-sponsor, I have essentially just lent my name to it and lent my whatever political capital I might have to it, whatever gravitas my name might carry. With all that said, John, your opponent, is she someone who sponsors a lot of legislation, or is she the proverbial rubber stamp co-sponsor for a lot of legislation?
She is,
or neither.
No, I mean neither really, but she co-sponsors legislation that is no brainers. She doesn't co-sponsor anything controversial. Like she wouldn't dare co-sponsor, any of the impeachment things that they were putting up against Governor Wolf, but any of like I call them like curtailed conservative, ideological stances or bills, she'll put her name on. But again, we know that's only for party bosses. Tell her to go ahead and do it. She won't go against the grain. That the Lancaster County Republican delegation here operates as a whole. If you follow all of the Lancaster County representatives on Facebook, you'll notice that when there's something going on, there's blanket statements across all social media platforms from all of them. Everything's so integrated, it's so coordinated. They act as one single entity, so there's not a whole lot of separation between them at all. And I think that that's going to grow even more now that the Speaker of the House is Brian Cutler, right here from Southern Lancaster County, and she is deeply hand in hand with him and his policies.
Is she someone who, when she is the primary sponsor of something, is it primarily a declaration or a resolution?
Absolutely.
But not actual legislation.
She doesn't have on her notches on her belt, she doesn't have any meaningful legislation that she sponsored. Absolutely nothing in the 8 years she's been in office.
We find I seem to be finding a lot of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's when we say the status quo and the establishment, that's what we're talking about. They don't want anything to change. It's not conservatism, it's neoconservatism. That's what they are.
So where is all the Republican legislation coming from?
From party leadership
That you're aware of?
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
Is it coming from? I realize I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
No, that's fine.
But from the guests that have been kind enough to come through and visit the program, it's been, other than Daniel with Mr. Metcalf, it has been exclusively seat holders, window dressing, folks who sit in the seat. They show up occasionally, get told what button to push, and move along. So where's all the legislation coming from? Is it ALEC, or is it the established leadership in Harrisburg currently, or both? Or is it industry? Is it lobbying? Is it money? Is it where, to the best of your knowledge, from what you have learned of the PA legislature throughout this campaign, where is Republican legislation coming from?
I mean, I think it's all trickling down.
Or is it all of the above?
It is all of the above, but I think it trickles down from the Commonwealth Foundation. It trickles down from a lot of these, PACs that are associated with dark money. It trickles down from the pharmaceutical corporate PACs. I mean, I think it is all industry related, lobbying that basically is writing the legislation and passing it down to the people that they paid to put in office. And they know they're going to get fat checks if they, just go ahead and introduce or sign their name on that legislation.
Can you define for me the Commonwealth Foundation?
I mean, how can you define them? It's basically you could probably define that a lot better than me. I mean, I follow them and I know what they stand for.
I can define it by allegory. It is Pennsylvania's version of the Heritage Foundation. It is Pennsylvania's version of ALEC. It is Pennsylvania's version. It is our own Commonwealth Coke network that actually does take Coke money.
Yep.
They are a sponsor. I do not know if they are the primary sponsor, but they are a sponsor. They are a funder. I do not know if they are not the only funder. They are a funder. I do not know if they are the primary funder. But they are the Commonwealth's branch of the Coke network.
Absolutely.
It's the easiest way to put it.
It's so easy to tell because they're anti-public education. They're anti-marijuana legalization.
They're essentially anti-everything.
They're anti. They're anti everything that entails any type of progress, and that's why it's so easy to see that these legislators turn to
They're
their left or their
pro-profit.
right. Right.
The easier thing would be to say what they are pro, and they are pro-profit.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
we can list what they are anti, as John was trying to do. They're anti-education. They are anti-prison reform. They're
Anti-science.
anti-criminal justice reform. They're anti-science. They're anti-government. They're anti-green energy. They're anti, I don't know, help me out, John. They're anti-infrastructure spending. They're anti
Anything that betters the Commonwealth.
anything
Honestly.
that betters the 99%.
Yep.
They're pro 1%. They're pro-profit.
And they're so behind this whole socialist thing too. You know what I mean? If you pay attention to a lot of their little cartoons that they put out and a lot of their talking points on social media platforms, it's like it just forms this big parade. You know, they put one ideological belief out there, and then in come all the, you know, conservative trolls that just adopt that like it's, you know, facts coming straight from the Bible. And I think that's something really dangerous, is people don't actually know, you know, who the men and women are behind the curtain pulling the strings.
Well, it's the Koch network. I'll fill that blank in rather simply. It's the
Absolutely.
it's the Koch network. Remember, folks, I say this it seems like I say this every week. And again, for my sisters and brothers, especially at the Hot 101, because you are a global audience. The majority, if not all, of the sharing that I do on Facebook is centered primarily inside the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where I happen to reside. Although the viewers there are not exclusively inside Pennsylvania, but for my sisters and brothers at Hot 101, wherever you are listening, this is not exclusively a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania problem. But I beg you to remember this. It's just math, folks. It's just math. There is a reason. There is a reason that it is the 1% and the 99%. Now, folks, I know that they have so much more money than we do. I know that they do. And I know that money can get daunting. It can seem like a mountain that we just cannot climb. It can seem like an Everest, and we've been given no coat, no boots, no ropes, no nothing, and told to climb it. But there's a reason why it's 1% and 99%. There's more of us. There's more of us. If all 99 of us vote and only one of them, we win. And that's the way we have to look at it. It's why I spend so much time every single week talking about the census and talking about voting. As I steal precious moments away here from John, when I hear his daughter in the background, she's probably waiting for Dad to come have dinner. I'm going to steal a few minutes from him. This is why we must vote. It's why we must fill out the census. Why does the top 1% and this particular regime occupying the White House and controlling the executive branch not want to count you? Why do they not want to hear from you? Why do they not want to know that you even exist? Folks, if your vote didn't count, if your vote was so damn meaningless, why would the Republican Party try to keep you from it? The simple fact that they are using every lever of power to keep you from exercising that vote tells you just how important it is. Now, I have told you on this program, week after week after week, if you are not part of the economic top 1%, I cannot fathom why on earth you would vote Republican. There's not a single economic argument you can make to me that is factual or logical. But even if you wish to vote that way, that is your right, and you should go do it because it's your vote. And I implore you to go do so. I don't agree with it, but that doesn't matter ultimately. It's your vote. I'm going to do everything I can to convince you that that vote is silly. But at the end of the day, you should go use it because it's yours. Because it's your vote. I'm a Democrat. I'm a member of the Democratic Party, and I will be until my days are done. And thank God in heaven there aren't many left. But even if you disagree with every single thing I have to say, that vote is still yours. And I beg you and implore you to go use it. I hope you agree with everything I have to say. In fact, you shouldn't. Probably means something's loose up there. But it's your vote. It's your voice. Go use it. John, how have you found voter engagement generally in your campaign travels? Not necessarily agreement with what you are campaigning on or your positions, but generally speaking, as you speak to people, whether it's through this medium or on the streets, safe, masked, and distanced, how's the voter engagement? You mentioned earlier that even if someone says to you, well, I don't necessarily agree with you, but at least I see you. How has the general voter engagement been?
General voter engagement has been great. We have just recently started getting back out there, like you said, safe, masked, and people have been really happy to see us at their doors. A lot of people have just said, it's nice to see a visual presence out here in the community, and that's been followed by a lot of our yard signs that have been out. And for the first time in 8 years of Mindy being in office, she decided to counter that presence. She knows we're out there. She can tell that we've canvassed. And for the first time in 8 years, she decided to circulate a large amount of signs. The general consensus has been very nice. I've had a lot of really friendly conversations with people. Even the other night when we did phone banking, we made over 4,000 calls, and I had a couple people tell me, hey, I didn't support you in this election because of X, Y, and Z, but it's really, really impressive. And in fact, you impressed me that you took time out of your schedule to call me, because nobody other than a handful of people have ever heard from our representatives. So people don't actually know here what it's like to have equal and fair representation. And I think that they appreciate just seeing myself, my team, and my family out there in the streets, or, early on in the year when we were knocking on a lot of doors and meeting a lot of them. And I think that's what politics is so desperately lacking, is just, especially during this year, just one-on-one interactions where we can talk like you and I are about some of the issues. And, I really do pride myself for being an effective coalition builder. I prioritize reaching out to independent voters, to young Republican voters, to older Republican voters. I actually garnished the endorsement from the Lancaster County Libertarian Party, which no Democrat has ever done before. And we don't see eye to eye on all the issues, but they understand that getting one more, career entrenched politician out of office is beneficial to all of us.
6:31 Eastern Time in the United States, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is the Kennedy Effect for 11 October 2020. Wherever you are with us on Facebook, thank you for being there, every single one of you, whether you are with us live or watching the recording later on. We appreciate you being there. The phone number is on the screen. I have neglected to give it out, but it is on the screen. You can call us, ask a question of myself or of John. You can call us right now. John will be with us for the remainder of the hour, and then he must move on and get back to his daughter, who I can hear having a good time in the background. She's playing. Sounds like a nice Sunday night. You can call us anytime here and ask a question of myself and or John. It is 267-227-9189, 267-227-9189. That other side of information is the home Facebook page for the program. You can enter questions or comments in the interactive chat. Their email is thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. John, in your phone banking and your texting, any campaign work that you're doing, you did touch on it just a tiny bit there. This might be a bit of a difficult question. I'm sure it's not something that you have like hard numbers on, but just generally speaking, how many folks do you talk to who do not even know who Mindy is?
Quite a few people. If I just had to make a generalized guess, I would say at least 7 out of 10 voters. I've had so many people tell me, I don't even know who you're running against. Who's our representative now? And they're Republicans or they're independents or even a lot of Democrats. So, yeah, when I say ghost within the community, not a lot of people know.
What does that say to you, not just about Miss Fee, but generally about the system?
System's broken. We don't have equal, fair, and just representation in Harrisburg. She advocates quite often. She'll say things like, it really is the people in Harrisburg, and I work for the people. And we all know that that's just, platitudes. We know that it's not true. I think the whole system is broken. And I think that we really, really need to strive to return the power here to the working class people, not just in Pennsylvania, not just, in Lancaster County, but across the entire country. And I think that Mindy Fee isn't the real problem. I think that she's a byproduct of a system that has broken down and been packed full of dysfunction for so long that it's become normalized.
John, we got about 25 minutes left with you before you need to move on, and I am grateful for every single minute that you have given me here this evening, and I very, very much appreciate it, my friend. So let me ask you a very, very broad question. We've talked about marijuana and how it links into the for-profit prison industry. We've talked about the system in general, the governmental system in general, true representation within that system. Give me a couple other 2, 3, whatever other issues that you are really, really the ones that really, really drive you in this campaign. Is it COVID? Is it wealth inequality? Is it infrastructure? Is it green energy? Is it, you tell me, what is driving John Padora in this campaign?
And that is a good question. And there's so many different things. So one of the biggest issues that last year and a half, I've been talking to voters now. I started my campaign really early, and affordable healthcare, that is the number one issue at almost everybody's door. And I've been plagued by it. I have a growing family. We have a constant cycle of thousands of dollars in medical debt, yet we have health insurance. It's so unsustainable. It's unreal. So one of my policy proposals is to open up and expand Medicaid, like a public buy-in option, raise the income threshold so that it's not connected to people's place of employment. I used to do a lot of subcontracting work where I would go from one manufacturer to the next, and it made it really hard to, keep health insurance and to make it affordable. So if I would be able to have the government subsidize a portion of that, because my children are on CHIP, and it's, thank goodness for that, because it's so much cheaper and effective for me as a father to be able to provide that for them. We need that for everybody. Everybody needs, healthcare is a human right. And I've been saying that since the beginning of my campaign. Everybody deserves equal access and opportunity to affordable healthcare, We have to fix that. If we don't fix healthcare, our country is going to break down even more than it already is. Tying that into another thing that I'm super passionate about is green energy. I've been advocating for, I call it a statewide green energy initiative program. And I say that because I don't like to get lumped in with the Green New Deal. Okay. I'm not even going to discuss whether or not I support those proposals right now, because what I support is creating a green energy based economy in Pennsylvania. I support a ban on fracking. I've studied the negative effects of the methane being dispersed into the atmosphere, and some of the methods which hydraulic fracturing, what it can cause, the earthquakes and a lot of different aspects related to climate change. We need to restrain the fossil fuel companies, generate hundreds of thousands of good paying jobs, and push back against climate change. I look at my beautiful family every day. I look at my children and I think, what type of future do they have if we keep allowing the fossil fuel companies to, dissect the science books and gut climate change out of the website and pack it full of misinformation? I mean, the planet's burning, the planet's heating up, the sea levels are rising. I have a background in environmental science and geospatial technology, so I've spent countless weeks analyzing satellite data that shows things like, sea surface ice melt, sulfur and nitrogen dioxide atmospheric concentration, CO2 concentrations historically, and the effects that they have. And we have a culture here throughout the United States, but in Pennsylvania predominantly, that is in bed with the big fossil fuel companies and allows them to, implement so much misinformation. So really, I believe that we can create, and I don't believe that we can, I believe that it is essential to our survival as human beings to create a more viable future by transitioning to a green energy economy. So healthcare, the green energy economy, legalizing, regulating marijuana, criminal justice reform, sentencing reform, parole and probation reform, raising the minimum wage, funding education so that we can lower property taxes for people. Those are really some of the biggest staples in my campaign, right up there along with finding new cash crops through hemp cultivation and marijuana legalization to save family-owned farms that are on the brink of extinction. And they are such a huge staple of Lancaster County. If we lose them to the corporate agricultural firms that don't care about what they're feeding us, that don't care about the communities that they, cultivate your food in, we're going to lose a lot of our culture here. And I think that needs to be preserved.
Let me see if I could push you a little bit on the green versus fossil fuel argument. You mentioned a fracking ban. Would that be an end to all fracking in the Commonwealth immediately, or no new fracking?
Right. So I always, again, pride myself with being a realist. I understand the science and the urgency behind it, but I also understand that we need to get real about energy. So when we're talking about a outright ban, I would say that we need to put a transitory period on it. We need to put a ban on it now and not allow any new fracking to transpire over the next, 5 or 10 years. I say it needs to be 5 years. And, one day past that 5-year mark, fracking's done in the state. We have the technology available, with these high efficiency, phase 4 and phase 5 nuclear generation capabilities, hydrogen fuel cell reactors and things. We can phase out that type of energy, and we can also protect the fossil fuel workers that are displaced. That's automatically the right's argument is you want to kill, 250,000 jobs. Well, I read the statistics the other day. Pennsylvania employs about 26,000 fracking positions. Most of them are transient workers from out of state. It's not directly impacting our economy. Also, if we're extracting any energy in Pennsylvania, the Constitution of Pennsylvania was written where the energy and the resources belong exclusively to the people. So you and I, we should be getting a paycheck every week from the fossil fuel companies, and they should have to backdate it 20, 30, 40 years as long as they've been extracting our natural resources.
So you believe in an extraction tax?
I believe in an extraction tax, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. And I support that for new revenue, introduction for the state. But like I said, I don't know if that's the Andrew Yang philosophy. Your data, we should all be getting paid from Facebook and Google every week because they're making money off of it. Those resources belong to the people of the Commonwealth, as the Constitution very clearly outlined. And that means that it belongs to you, it belongs to me, it belongs to my children and our community. So where's our vested interest when they're taking our energy and then inflating the cost of it and distributing it to us or selling it out of state? Why are we not reaping some of that money personally ourselves?
This might be more of an ethereal argument, John. The Constitution also guarantees clean air, water, and land. Are we violating our own state constitution every single day that fracking takes place in this Commonwealth?
Absolutely. Every single day, every day we wake up, they're violating the Constitution, and it's willingly, and it's causing a lot of health problems. And it's fracking is just at the tip of the iceberg. Like I said to you earlier, that my father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. One of the things that I let out from that is 5 of the kids that he grew up with on the same block as him were all diagnosed with MS. Well, we also lived in Nesquehoning, which was capital of the northeastern Pennsylvania coal region, and they didn't even have modern sewer systems until the late 90s. It was discharging human waste right into the creeks. The acid mine drainage that was coming out of the coal mines and stuff, and all the different zinc and harmful chemicals and elements that they were mining there posed so many health risks and ruined so many people's lives. My father, I'm convinced, would still be here with me today, along with a lot of his friends, if the fossil fuel companies that have been acting like parasites for generations by extracting our resources, exploiting our labor forces, and really just wreaking havoc on our community in the name of profit, if they would have been restrained a long time ago, so many people would be alive and thriving. So it's a very dangerous violation to our Constitution.
You mentioned earlier a simple Google search will tell you that the number of fossil fuel jobs, current fossil fuel jobs in the Commonwealth. Now, I will tell you that the searches that I do, I come up with a variety of answers.
Right.
I get a range of answers, anywhere from 54,000 down to 26,000 fossil fuel jobs current in the Commonwealth. When I do that same type of search for green energy jobs in the Commonwealth, I get in excess of 90,000.
Right. Without making significant investments in green energy.
Well, none, really.
Right.
Essentially no investments.
Absolutely.
Other than private investment.
Right. Private investments.
Or personal investments if you want to put solar panels on your home.
Right.
The Commonwealth gives the fossil fuel industry roughly $3.2 billion a year in free money, tax credits, breaks, or just essentially hands them properly hands them money every single year. The party opposite us, the Republican Party, says they believe in the free market. Let the free market decide. If green energy wins that pricing war and ends up being the object of choice, then so be it. But yet we hand the fossil fuel industry this free money. I make the argument every single week on this program that the best investment you can make currently in the Commonwealth is a politician. Campaign check or flat out cash of maybe $250, $500, $1,000, and you get back $3.2 billion. If any of us could make that investment in the private sector, buy a stock for $250, $500, $1,000, and get back $3.2 billion, I think we'd all buy in. Tell me about the free market. There's no free market in the Commonwealth, is there? Since we give $3.2 billion to fossil fuels and yet green energy is still winning, hasn't the free market made up its damn mind? Why are we handing this money away to an industry that is dying?
In the name of profit preservation. That's exclusively what it comes down to. They, again, Jeff, you know this, and I'm just saying it, they don't believe in the free market. That is all to engage and to enrage their base and to make them think that they're fiscally conservative, limited government, pro-liberty, free market. There hasn't been a free market. The crony capitalism that's been going on, you can't defend that as free market capitalism. And they're all well aware that the free market has decided that green energy is the future. But much like our current president, that are in their last years of their life, they are so clinging on to that, phase of, American energy consumption and production that's gone. They're so utterly terrified of progress. Anytime that we make any type of advancements and achievements, they just discourage it with so much misinformation. And I don't think that they can stop it. But the minute that we start to elect politicians that are younger, we need a generational change of power. It's people like us that are going to, I'm 31 years old. I have 3 children. We're going to be on this planet a lot longer than, Mindy Fee is, or Donald Trump, or any of these individuals that have such a weak stance on climate change. And you can just see that it all stems back to the fossil fuel industries telling them exactly how to think. I think it's only a matter of time. And just like marijuana legalization or any other advancement, we're going to make Medicare for all. It's just a matter of time.
267-227-9189 if you want to squeeze in a question for John before he leaves us at the top of the hour. Last week, John, my guest, Graham Gonzalez, actually called for a change to the Pennsylvania state constitution when he said we need a progressive income tax system in the state. He believes in the elimination of property taxes as a funding mechanism for schools, but to raise the income tax, it is currently flat, as you are well aware. That disproportionately affects the 99%, especially people in the bottom 20% and the middle class. It lesser affects people of extreme wealth. Republicans love to talk about eliminating the property tax, although their current plan disproportionately affects people of lesser means. It really hammers the bottom 20% and pretty much guts the middle 80%. The top 10% actually would pay less than they do under the current property tax system. Where are you?
Somewhere right in the middle. I mean, I do believe in a progressive tax reform package. There is no doubt that we need to reform tax laws in Pennsylvania. They're catered to the financially elite. And I do believe in eliminating property tax, but at the same time, I don't believe in just eliminating the property tax just to raise another. I don't like to trade tax values around that way. I like to find new sources of revenue. I like to actually analyze a lot of the wasteful spending, like you said, $3.2 billion a year in the form of fossil fuel subsidies. That's ridiculous. I mean, think about how much tax burden that would take away from everybody. Think about the extraction tax, like we talked about earlier. If we find, closing the Delaware loophole, things like that, if we can just find the sources of revenue, cut out the wasteful spending, we can really, and pass progressive tax reform, I think it would really benefit the state overall.
So you would keep some form of property tax in addition to raising additional revenue sources from the others, and you would like to see the state constitution changed to add a progressive step levels?
Yes, I would like to see the state constitution modified. And again, when it comes to property tax reform, I'm always open and receptive. I never claim to be, a know-it-all. What I want to do when I get to Harrisburg is surround myself and practice my coalition building with people from all backgrounds that we can come together and form a caucus that can solve the problems. Because when you have 10, 20, 30 people in a room from all different backgrounds, that's how things are done. So I am always open and receptive to any type of policy change in regards to property tax or progressive tax reform. But I believe that it needs to be negotiated, and I need to spend a little more time being an insider so that I can get exposed to that a little more, know exactly what needs to be done and when. But I'm aware that the 1% needs to pay their fair share of taxes. We need to close the Delaware loophole, but we also need to incentivize businesses to want to stay here in the first place. So there's a balance with taxing. I do believe in that.
Yeah, you just said something there that I think a lot of people are afraid to sometimes say, as if it is a measure of weakness somehow, or something that might be goodness, I'm searching for a term. Sorry, John. Searching for a term here. Some badge of discourage when you just said, I don't know it all. Why is that such a bad thing to admit?
I mean, I think when people look towards legislators and they look towards politicians, you know, they some people want to envision these people that are all seeing and all knowing, but I come from a background where I like to see politicians and I like to see my elected officials that aren't robotic. I like to see my elected officials that are willing to acknowledge their own shortcomings. I like to see people evolve and grow, because if we're not growing and evolving in life, what are we really doing? When you run to be a state representative, that means that you represent the people within your district, not just your own ideology. So my own ideology, my own policy decisions in Harrisburg will be reflective based on conversations of everyone that I have within my district, but it'll also be reflective of my colleagues and from organizations, you know, all around the state that have vested interest. I don't think that it shows a sign of weakness. I do agree that a lot of people feel that way, but I like to see people that are willing to hear both sides of the argument.
Lastly, let's touch on this as we get about 7 minutes before you have to leave us. Medicare buy-in. You're the first person who's tripped across my doorway here in this humble little program to mention Medicaid buy-in, I should say. We're talking about state level. Medicaid buy-in. Talk to me about it. Explain where you're coming from here.
Sure. So if we just look at CHIP, I know probably so many people listening have CHIP. CHIP has income eligibilities.
CHIP is the
Children's Health Insurance Program. And it's such a great tool because the government subsidizes a cost, a portion of the cost of your healthcare. There are certain income eligibilities up to maybe $120,000 a year based on your family size. So a lot of people end up paying, that earn like a decent middle class living. Let's say a family of 4, 70,000 people. I'm just throwing numbers out. They probably pay $50 a month per child, and that's dental, vision, healthcare, hospitalization with $0 or $5 copays. My son had issues with seizures, in a form of epilepsy, and we had to do so many tests at Hershey Medical Center. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars in bills. And if I would have had private insurance with a high deductible insurance like my wife and I have that's provided through our employer, we would have been in a really bad boat. So the public buy-in option that I want to provide to people is, a lot of people don't qualify for Medicaid unless you're basically living on poverty wages. So I believe that we need to raise that income eligibility, because a family of 4 earning $70,000 a year, that might sound crazy to some people, but throughout the Commonwealth, that's hard to survive on. And they should some of their health care should be subsidized by the government, because when we invest in our communities, we have healthy workers, healthy, productive workers mean healthy economy, healthy families. I mean, it just trickles down. So we need to raise that income eligibility, but we also need to provide everybody within the income cap threshold. Say you earn $100,000 a year, family of 4. Okay, so we'll set a tier for you. You can buy into Medicaid for $125 a month, and you'll have $10 copays on all your doctor's visits. That will give people like collective bargaining power. Our employers a lot of times hold us hostage with our benefits, or like I said, people like me that transferred around a lot through subcontracting jobs. We shouldn't have to have our health insurance connected to our job. It's ridiculous, especially during a pandemic. You lose your job, everybody, you got laid off, you didn't have health insurance. If you had that Medicaid public buy-in option, you could have lost your job and you still would have had your health insurance, because hopefully you still would have been able to pay that $100 or $125 a month. So I think we need to get serious when we advocate for things as progressives like, Medicare for all. I support that hands down. I believe healthcare is a human right. But as a state legislator here in Pennsylvania, that's going to be a really, really hard sell. And we're talking maybe 10, 15 years down the road. But right now, a Medicaid public buy-in option, that's resonated even with a lot of conservative voters. And I think that's something that we need to get serious about.
A quick search here tells me that the maximum income The maximum income for a single person ages 19 to 64 inside the Commonwealth to qualify for Medicaid is $15,800 or $1,317 per month.
I mean, who could live on that? Honestly, that $15,000, that's absolutely ridiculous. Imagine families, you know what I mean? Like I said, families of 2, 3, or 4, that's just for a single person. The cost of living is unparalleled. It's unaffordable. Here in Lancaster County, you need to earn $19 an hour just to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. I mean, it was never meant to be that way. Or if it was, then the system's working exactly as it's intended to, and it needs to be disrupted.
What that is basically puts you at the $7.25 an hour minimum wage times 40 hours. So if your only job was $7.25 at 40 hours, that would be it. But then again, who lives on that?
I don't know how anyone can afford to live on that. I have no idea.
I don't either.
It's a real tragedy. You know, I think the Medicaid public buy-in option would.
And there's only one reason, John, and you and I know this. We know the answer to this already, but we're going to both say it out loud. The only reason to set a threshold that low is to keep people from accessing the program.
Absolutely.
Period.
Yeah, I mean, and that's been a selling point for the right for a long time. My opponent, when she first ran in 2012, I watched the debate between her and her opponent in the special election, and that's what they talked about: welfare reform and, you know, eliminating Medicaid. And I liked how the Democratic candidate responded to her at the time. He said, "Well, Mindy, it's really easy to go after the poor people, isn't it? Rather than cut where all the wasteful spending's coming from. Wasteful spending isn't programs like Medicaid." Like I said, if we don't get serious and realize that people need health insurance, if we want to have a thriving economy, you know, the link between healthy individuals and a thriving economy, you know, especially during a pandemic, come on.
John, we're approaching the top of the hour. I want to just, first off, I want to thank you profusely, as I do with every guest who is kind enough to share their time with me, especially on what is traditionally in this country a quiet family time, which is a Sunday evening. I hear your daughter in the background. She's probably, you know, begging for daddy to come back and have dinner with her. So I will kindly say, go have dinner with your daughter. I appreciate very, very much for you being here with me for over 2 hours, because as regular watchers and listeners of the program will know, my guests join me early on Zoom in case we have any technical gremlins. So John has been with me for almost 2.5 hours now. I want to thank you profusely for being part of the program, being my guest this week. You know that we wish you all the luck in the world in your campaign, in the upcoming election. We beg you to stay safe in these perilous times, not just for you, but for your family. Before you leave us, I want to throw open the floor to you for any of the following. Of course, all your contact information, any of the ways that any of our viewers and listeners can follow all things John Padora, but also if there is anything that we maybe did not get a chance to hit on that you wanted to hit on. So just the floor is wide open. It's all yours. Take it.
Sure. So thanks for having me, Jeff. I really appreciate you extending the invite. I think it was actually a really fun dialogue. So it was nice to throw ideas back and forth. I am really excited about my race, and it's for a multitude of reasons. I knew what the data was before I got involved. But my whole goal in running this race is to change the data. If we don't break down some of those barriers and we don't lay infrastructure for future campaigns, you know, whether it's myself or somebody else to actually pull off a victory, and we're going to tread water. So really the biggest contrast is that my opponent is funded by all the powerful institutions that we just spoke about tonight. She's funded by the individuals that, you know, repress progress. And my campaign message since the beginning has been unity, vision, and progress. And we achieve that through bipartisanship, through sending people that aren't going to be locked into this, partisan gridlock and the culture of greed and corruption in Harrisburg. We need to send people that are blue collar workers, that are husbands, fathers, mothers, nurses and teachers. And we just need people that'll actually fight for us and advocate for us in Harrisburg. And I'm proud of the work that we've been doing. I'm proud of some of the endorsements. We actually just got endorsed by Senator Bernie Sanders 2 days ago, which was awesome. I think there was a total of 11 candidates in Pennsylvania that were selected for that. So that was just that felt really good to know that, we were being recognized, because it gave our campaign a lot of legitimacy here in a highly conservative district where, the local newspaper outlet covered the story the next day and they said, John Padora running a long shot campaign, and recited all the, Republican registration advantages and a lot of the negative talking points, which is fine, because that's what we're here to do, tear down barriers. But we've really formed some productive alliances, Green Party voters, independent voters, libertarian voters, young Republicans that are advocates of, fiscal responsibility, limited government, pro-liberty and things like that. So I think that we're making waves. I think that we're going to make a lot of change. And I would just encourage everybody who wants to be involved to check us out on Twitter. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have a pretty active presence. My website is just johnpadora4staterep.com if you want to learn more. My personal phone number is on there. You can call any time of day. I'll always speak with anybody, call, text. We're running a very transparent campaign. I always try to respond to everybody, whether it's online or through my inbox. So please feel free to reach out. And I hope that you'll be seeing a lot more of me soon.
Personal phone number. You got me beat, John. I use a Google Voice number, so you got me beat. You're way ahead of me, pal.
That's all right. You got to give me the advantage somewhere.
Well, listen, thank you again for being here. You've been here over two hours. I'm very, very grateful. Again, please stay safe out there. Go hit them hard. And, we wish you the best of luck. And as I say with every single guest who comes here, this door is always open to you. I hope this is not a one-time visit.
For sure.
No one, once you visit here once, you're part of the family, and we hope that you will come back and visit us again, after everything calms down. And we wish you the best of luck. Thank you for being here, my friend. I'm very, very grateful to you.
Thank you. I look forward to getting through the last couple weeks of this campaign, and I look forward to coming back. So I'll speak with you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, John. That is John Padora, the Democratic nominee and candidate for the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives in the 37th District, Lancaster County. I will have to look up a district map to see just how gerrymandered that district is. I can only imagine. I imagine it looks like some very odd shaped creature. I should Google the origination of the term gerrymandering. It was a legislator who's named Jerry, and he drew a district that looked like a dragon, and the term came from him. It became gerrymandering from that. And it is the term itself, sadly, has become a bit of an anachronism in that we hear it and it tends to pass us. It tends to fly past us. We tend to hear it as a bit of a title, almost as a bit of almost like a joke. The same way that sometimes we hear tax and spend, or conservative, or liberal, or we tend to sometimes have these terms hurled past us and they don't always sink in as for what they really are. The legislative district map inside the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and in states across the country, in Texas, Kansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, the entirety of the old Confederacy, through the north central states, some of the Midwest states. They have been drawn, congressional maps as well, by the way. They have been drawn to ensure that Republican candidates will win their races regardless of what they stand for, what they do in office. They have been drawn so that, again, these phrases sometimes become, they tend to fly past us, that we don't listen to them anymore. But when you hear the phrase, candidates picking their voters instead of voters picking their candidates, it's the truth. These districts are drawn so that anyone could run for them as long as there's an R after it, and they'll win. I remember John telling me when we first met that I believe the registration in his district, I believe, is actually 30% higher than the Democratic registration. So what does that mean? It means that whatever the number of people who are registered Democrats in his district, there are 30% more Republicans. And the district was drawn that way intentionally to make sure that at least for the last 10 years, because those districts will be drawn again, that's why the census is so important. It was drawn intentionally to make sure that no matter who ran in that district, it would be a Republican representing it, because Republicans are very, very good at voting for their own, no matter who it is. Give me 100 evangelical Republicans and Satan could run as a Republican and he'll win. They vote in lockstep. Sadly, they give very, very little critical self-examination to their candidates. This is why, when we were just speaking to John, I asked him as much as I did about the conversations that he's having with the voters that he's talking to. When he says, I'm speaking to Republicans and they're telling me, well, you know, come to think of it, I haven't actually thought about why I vote this way. I just always have. That's why campaigning is so important. Speaking to voters is so important. It's why this election cycle has been so unique and so interesting, because it's why I've encouraged the candidates that I've been fortunate enough, honored enough to speak with, to get out there, even in this pandemic, to get out there safely, masked and distant, and speak to people and look at them in the eye and make that case. So why are you voting the way you are? Why do you walk in that booth and just find the R and punch it? Why? Because too many of us are doing it simply based on that R or that D, and we shouldn't be. Government in and of itself is not broken. It has been starved of money, and it has been broken by the people in it. Intentionally. You have been convinced that government cannot help you. You have been convinced that government is broken because it has been broken by the people in it. It has been broken and starved of money by people with money because it is the only overarching institution that can rein in, that can control, that can protect the weak, the powerless, the poor, and the middle class from those that have all the money. And it has not done so because those with the money have bought it and broke it. But these things are cyclical, he tried to say. These things are cyclical. This is the Gilded Age, the second Gilded Age. This is how government was before the Great Depression. We find ourselves in another depression. It doesn't have to be this way. And that's why money and those that have all of it want to control government so they can keep it. We can do better. We have to do better. If every single policy, every single one of them, from Roosevelt's New Deal, were reinstituted starting tomorrow morning, the top 1% would still be the top 1%. They would still have more money than they could ever spend in the next 10 lifetimes. They just wouldn't have as much. What on earth are we talking about here? 267-227-9189. 267-227-9189. I'm going to try to carry this puppy all the way to 8 o'clock. That means me talking to 8 o'clock. That's going to be something. That's going to really be something. I'm not sure if you folks are up for that, but it's going to be something. I wanted to tell you a little bit about what is happening here at home. You may or may not find this interesting. You might find it boring as sin, to be honest. I don't really know. But let's give it a shot. It could be powerfully boring, come to think of it. So, starting let me back up. Let me not get into this quite yet. Let me get into something else. Let me hit on a couple of old themes. Let me hit on a couple of old themes first. We, here in the Commonwealth, we are very, very close to flipping our legislature. We are 9. I'm doing this out of my head. You can, if you're watching, you can watch me struggle with this. Probably see the gears turning, smoke coming out of my ears and whatnot. We are 9 members away. I believe we need to flip 9 seats. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong in the chat or something. 9 seats away in the House and 4 seats away in the Senate from flipping our state legislature from Republican to Democratic. It is that legislature whom will be responsible primarily for redrawing the very districts that I am discussing with you as it regards to John and others like him in the races in which they are running. And whether they are fair districts or they continue to be written on behalf of the legislators instead of the legislated. And to me, that's a big deal. We need to flip this. If you are in the Commonwealth, again, at the risk of being ridiculously repetitive, unbelievably repetitive, let me just say, if you have not filled out the census, what does the census have to do with flipping the legislature? Because of the population count, do it. The Trump regime has said that it will ignore the federal courts and end census data collection immediately. Now, they have not done it. They have threatened to do it for at least the last week-ish or so. I believe since October 7th or earlier, they said they were going to ignore a federal court and stop data collection. They have been ordered to collect census data until the end of the month, until Halloween, until October 31st. If you have not filled out the census, do so. The census is connected to the drawing of legislative districts, of course, by population. So you want to be counted. If you are inside the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, it matters to you because we may lose a member of the House of Representatives. If you are in any of the other states listening to us through Facebook or through Hot 101, you may gain one. Perhaps you'll gain one. So you want to be counted. And that, of course, brings me to the other topic that I hit on every single week, vote. Again, I mentioned it while we were speaking to John. Vote, 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 vote. Do not ever not vote. For goodness sake, even if you walk in to a polling place in person with a mask on and decide to take a blank ballot and hand it back in blank, that's a vote. If you come to the calculation that not a single person listed on that ballot deserves your vote, that's a vote. Use your vote. If you are a member of the Democratic Party and you believe desperately if you understand how close this party is to flipping the legislature, if you believe that good folks like John Padora and Daniel Smith and Graham Gonzalez and Patty Smith and Michelle Siegel and Tara Shakespeare and Shanna Danielson and Adam Rodriguez and Tara Zirinsky and Enid Santiago and Michael Blihar and many, many others, and Amanda Waldman and Jackie Baker and others that I'm going to forget to name that are going to be mad at me that I'm forgetting, and they have every right to be mad at me. If you believe that these good people should be elected to office, then get out there. Todd Eachus. How could I forget my friend Todd, who was just on the program? Even Todd's not going to be happy with that one. And he has a right to be. Then get out there and vote. I have my own mail-in ballot that I have yet to fill in. I have to fill it in, and I need to deliver it to the county courthouse. So I am lax myself. Heal or heal thyself. I must look in the mirror and correct my own faults. I must deliver my own ballot. So I'm not innocent here. I have to do it. First off, let me be plain. I'm gobsmacked that I even got the ballot. I'm absolutely gobsmacked that I even got it. I'm stunned. I never expected to even see it. So there's that. I'm gobsmacked that I even got it. Completely. Now I've got to fill it out and deliver it. In fact, if I can find it, I'd be happy to show it to you. I will not open it, but I will be happy to show. Oh, here it is. So I've got it. As you can see, I haven't even opened it yet. And for my sisters and brothers at Hot 101, I'm holding up the envelope that my ballot came in. It is still sealed. I have not even opened it. You have, I have future guests that are going to come on. Good people. You have good folks. Bill Monahan, Marianne Keegan, Taylor Bacone, Margie Brown, Steve Crizzen, Sean Doherty, George Scott. I know there's other people I'm forgetting. I know there is. Good human beings. If you feel that they belong, then go vote for them. If you're a Republican and you feel that your people belong, then go vote for them. I don't agree with you, but that's okay. Go vote. For God's sake, go vote. Voter turnout they have mandatory voting in Australia. You must go vote. You must vote. You are fined if you do not vote. Voter turnout is in excess of 96%. That is how voting should be here in the United States. Should we have mandatory voting? We shouldn't have to have mandatory voting, but I'm not opposed to it. We shouldn't have to. We should be better than that. We shouldn't need it. But they have it there. So, anyway, let me give you a couple seconds on the vice presidential debate. I tried to watch as much as I could stomach, and it wasn't much. It wasn't much. It is always interesting to me to see the different views that people will take. Our views on such things will always be clouded by our political persuasion. But this particular debate, I have to wonder, this particular cycle, I have to wonder what some folks are watching. To see the folks on the right talk about the quote unquote monster, the evil person Senator Harris was. When the moderator asks Senator Harris a question and says you have 2 minutes without interruption, and then she is interrupted, turns to the sitting vice president and says, I'm speaking. Where does that make her a monster? Where does that make her a monster? Or is she a monster because she's a member of the Democratic Party? Is that why you think she's a monster? Is she a monster because she's a woman of color? Is she a monster because she's a woman, period? I think for those of you who think she's a monster, you're the ones that need to look in the mirror. Again, you can disagree with her all you want. That is your right. Every right in the world. You have a policy difference with her, then by God, you disagree with her all you want. When Susan Page asks a question and finishes it with the statement, Senator Harris, you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption, and then she is interrupted by the sitting vice president, she looks at him and says, Sir, I'm speaking. How is that her fault? If you do not like what she has to say and you disagree with it, that's your prerogative. It would seem to me that if she was not speaking the truth, the sitting vice president wouldn't have a reason to interrupt her. It would also seem to me that if the sitting vice president had answers of his own, he would have given some. It would also seem to me that if the sitting vice president had any facts to give, he would have given them. But he had very few. Now he's slick. He's very, very slick. He's a former radio host. He's used to being on camera. He's used to being on television. He's used to being behind a microphone. He's obviously way more calm, cool, and collected than the current occupant of the White House, despite all of his television work. But did he say anything that was that more factual? No. Sadly, no. Did he present his lack of facts in a much more easily digestible visual presentation? Yes. But it was no more accurate. It didn't make it any more accurate. The hypocrisy this week has been stunning. For the vice president to talk about how great the treatment was that the president received for his COVID, when one of the experimental treatments was developed by aborted fetal tissue. I mean, you can't make it up. for the vice president and the current occupant of the White House to talk about the company that made that experimental treatment. And then for executives to do nothing but talk about the company constantly every time they open their mouths for 2 straight days. And then top executives of that company to then sell some stock a couple days later after the price went through the roof. You can't make that up. Mr. Pence, while governor of Indiana, passed laws that would force women to have invasive ultrasounds when they wanted abortions. He passed a law to force women to have funerals when they had miscarriages. He's that anti-abortion. But yet praised a treatment that came, an experimental treatment that came from research done on aborted fetal tissue. The hypocrisy is stunning at a very minimum. But then again, praising the treatment made a handful of people a lot of money. Nothing gets in the way of profit, does it? 267-227-9189. The number's on the screen if you're watching on Facebook. 7:30 Eastern Time in the United States. We will try to carry you to 8 p.m. Wherever you are watching on Facebook, that other side of information is the home group Facebook page. That is where we will see you. If you happen to have comments or questions, that is where I will see them. To our sisters and brothers on hot101.net, thank you again for allowing me into your homes, your speakers, your cars, your devices, wherever you are listening. Go to the home website, the main website page. It's been redesigned and it is fantastic. It looks great, super easy to use. You can also get the apps for Hot 101, Apple App Store, the Google Play Store if you have an Android device. You can use the TuneIn Radio app. Just search for hot101.net. My thanks to DJ Lex, DJ Earl, and of course my friend and partner April Riddick for helping me establish myself and be part of the hot101.net family. Could not do it without them. If you have a business, product, service that you literally want to bring to the attention of the entire globe, you can email us, thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. For all things in the world of the Kennedy Effect, you can email us at thatotherkennedy@gmail.com. 267-227-9189. A quick, nice, non-political story, if you will allow me. Go outside tonight, if it is clear where you are, and this week. The planet Mars will be at its closest point in the next 26 months to Earth. That is why earlier in the summer, all of the launches for robotic probes to Mars were done. That was the launch window. I fancy myself a bit of a junior astronomer. I don't have a telescope or anything, but I do go outside pretty much every night and I look around at the heavens. I use my Sky Guide app. I do have a pair of binoculars. I like to look up. I like to see the planets and the stars. I like to see how they move. And remember, everything up in the sky is moving. We are moving. The planets are moving. The stars are moving. The solar system is moving. The galaxy is moving. Everything is moving. We are not even a complete whole grain of sand in the entire cosmos. We are even smaller than that. We are a speck of dust, if we are even a complete speck of dust. But it's all moving. And if you go outside tonight, if it's clear where you are, I think it's actually going to be cloudy where I am. I think it might be cloudy now. You will see the brightest thing that you will see in the entire sky will be the planet Mars. It will not be twinkling. Planets do not twinkle. And it will have an orangish tint to it. That will be the planet Mars. Go have a look. Take a break from politics and all this fun stuff and just go have a look. Just stare at it for a couple minutes. Take a break from everything. I find that when you look up at the stars and the planets, it tends to have an effect on your brain. You tend to focus a bit on how small we all are. How we are just one planet of 8 just in our solar system. How we are just one solar system of hundreds of billions just in this one galaxy, which is one galaxy out of hundreds of billions of galaxies. And it begins to kind of wash over you how small we really are. And it tends to reset the brain in a way that can sometimes be healthy. It's a cleansing sensation, if that's the right word. It's good. It's a good thing. It can be a good thing. So I would highly recommend that you do that. Have it, go outside, look up. I happen to use the Sky Guide app. I receive no money from Sky Guide. I'm not an owner in Sky Guide. That just happens to be the one that I use. I find it easy to use. It plays some lovely new age music behind it. Turn your location services on and go have a look. My friend Franz reminds me through a text that you should try to find some place with low light pollution around you, low ambient light. You don't want street lights around you. Try to find a dark place. Obviously no trees, all that fun stuff, but you don't want light pollution around you. When you do it, you will see more of everything if you can get to a place without a lot of light pollution. Let me just get to this because I need to kind of get this off my chest a bit. 267-227-9189. We will try to carry you here for about 20 more minutes, and we'll say goodbye to everybody at the top of the hour. 267-227-9189. So this week marks the end of my regular unemployment from the state of New Jersey. I drew unemployment benefits from New Jersey because that's where I was working. I do have an interview tomorrow, and I'm supposed to start a job on Friday. I'm 51 years old. My traditional work background, career background, 9 to 5, get dirty work, is in warehousing. Now, I can't say that I am exactly the worker that I used to be, because I've had several surgeries. I can't drag pallets across the floor like I used to. I can't climb pallet racks like I used to when I was a kid. But there is nothing in a warehouse environment that I have not done myself or that I have not managed. And yet, Friday, I'm supposed to start a job that any kid could do out of high school for a whopping $15. A nearly 70% cut in my income. 35 years of experience, 32 years of supervisory and managerial experience. 4.5 years of searching for a new job since I moved from New Jersey back to Pennsylvania, and 6 months of intense job searching have led me to an entry-level $15 an hour job. Now, some folks don't have that. So for that, I'm grateful. But what this job search has taught me is just how neo-feudalistic this economy has become. Where experience seems to no longer matter. Character seems to no longer matter. Age seems to matter a hell of a lot. But that I seem to have been tossed into the bin with someone just popping out of high school or out of college or technical school. I understand now why so many folks coming fresh out of college with their crispy, brand new, gold-leafed degrees in wonderful frames are not finding work. Because knowledge and experience seems to not matter for anything. Every day I sit in front of this laptop and I send out 5, 10, sometimes 20, 30 resumes in a day. And I take computer assessment after assessment after assessment. And I find that I'm no longer a human being. I'm a computer assessment. I'm an algorithm. And I don't know if I'm just too clever by half or too clever for my own good, or my answers maybe do or don't matter. I never answer the salary question because I continually hope that eventually I'll be judged on a face-to-face interview, or at least a phone interview or a Zoom interview or something. But 35 years of experience and 32 years of management experience, and I'm interviewing for jobs and been hired to a job that a high school kid with no education beyond high school could do. And look, that's okay. I'm the folks that hired me and the wonderful people that I interviewed with actually for that job could not have been nicer. They're lovely, lovely ladies. But I also know that there's probably 100 different positions that pay actual money that I'm eminently more qualified for. And it's been a mystery to me. And so why am I getting into all of this? Is just a sad sob story that I want you all to, feel sorry for me for? No, not at all. I'm not special. Not clearly, not in any way, shape, or form. I'm just another, throwaway piece of saran wrap along with the rest of it. Clearly, obviously, I mean nothing. I guess I'm getting into all of this because, for what I said, it has taught me just how disposable we've all become. I rail on this program a lot about the 1% and how they have all the money. And they do. But what they also seem to have is so much of the power and the control. And that we are and we have become cogs in the machine. We are car tires. We are spark plugs. We are dishes. We are chewing gum. One breaks, take it out, plug a new one in. No experience necessary. Can't keep up? Fired. Get the next one. Injured? Fired. Get the next one. Have an opinion? Fired. Get the next one. Come on in, interview. These are the conditions of the job. Do you like it? Well, this would actually be the fourth job I would be taking on just to try to keep food on the table. Is there any way I could possibly work these hours? Nope. Get out. Next. In fact, I just took a phone call like that today. We saw your interview, or we saw your resume. These are the hours of the job. We'd like to bring you in. Sorry. This would be the second or third or fourth job I would be taking on, just in the hopes of keeping my home. Well, too bad. Feel free to reapply. Click. This isn't. We're the only country that is the way we are. Folks, we're the only country that is the way we are. What happens here is not normal. It is not the way the rest of the world operates. John Padora talked about having support from within the Libertarian Party. There has been precious few strictly libertarian governmental experiments on the planet. Two of them have been in recent times, and they have been spectacular failures. One was Iraq. After the George W. Bush illegal and unjustified invasion. And as it failed in real time, they formed a parliament and a government because they knew it couldn't continue. The other is Somalia. Anyone vacation there recently? The complete lack of government that led to pirates off its coast? That was a story for a month or two. Funny we don't hear about that much anymore. We have become a throwaway society, but not just plastic straws and plastic dinnerware. We've become a throwaway society of people. And I'm one of them. I won't just be starting, well, I'll be starting, I'm scheduled anyway, to start one job on Friday, but that won't be the only one. And again, it doesn't make me unique. This is not a sad story. Well, it is a sad story, but it's not a solitary story. I know many of you watching and listening are probably saying to yourselves, suck it up, Buttercup. And you're not wrong. Following the New Deal up into the mid 60s, late 60s, it took 1.2 full-time jobs in this country to sustain a family of 4. It now takes 2.7. So when I start this job Friday, this will not be the only one. I will probably have to take on 2 more for a total of 3 just to keep myself afloat. And I know I'm not the only one, but I don't go through this litany for self-pity. I go through it to make all of you listening in the hopes that you will think, is this who we are? Is this who we are? When the richest man on earth is worth over $200 billion, but yet so many of us are working 2 and 3 and 4 jobs just to feed ourselves. Is that who we are? Is that all that we are? Is this all that we've become? When other nations on earth are not doing this, this is not happening in other countries. Greatest country on earth. This is not happening in other countries. Is this all that we are? Are we not better than this? I take you back to Franklin Roosevelt's 4 freedoms. How can a man be truly free when he is not free from want? Again, Roosevelt never said that every person in the country had a right to be rich, had a right to be wealthy, but a right to be free from want. Are we not better than this? I ask every single one of you to think about that. When you fill out the census and when you go vote, to think about that. Are we not better than this? If you think that working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 2 and 3 jobs or 4 jobs at a time, never having a day off, barely if ever seeing your children, not even giving a passing thought to going on holiday, let alone The closest thing you might have to having a holiday is a picture of a beach. Is this all that we are? Is this what this nation has descended to? Not even second world, but third world. Is this what we are? Is this what we've become? Is this truly all that we are? Surely we're better than this. A throwaway society where human beings have become plastic straws and burger wrappers and old car tires. Not a single day passes that I do not think of my late father. I miss him every single day. I used to be sorry that he is not here. I was wrong. He's the lucky one. When we talk about our departed being in a better place, we're right. They are. There's a reason why nearly every other nation on earth will not welcome Americans. Because they know how bad it's become here. They're right. One of the only thoughts left that gives me solace is that there are fewer days ahead of me than behind. I look forward to that. I very much look forward to being here with you every single week. I truly, truly do. I tell you every single week how this program and being behind a microphone and doing radio and doing television has been a dream of mine since I was in high school. And it is. And it has been. But if God calls me home before next Sunday, I will not weep. Because this isn't a life. If we can't reestablish the bonds of community and society and decide, all of us together, rich and poor, not just the 99%, but at least the 99%, but 100% of us. If we can't decide that we're better than this, then may God call me home. Soon. Very, very soon. Like before Friday. That's it for this week. I beg you all to be safe, to be healthy, wear a mask, stay distant, fill out the census, vote, no matter how you have to do it, and no matter how or whom you decide to vote for, vote. It's that important. So please do so. And finally, as always, have discussions. Don't have arguments. Check on elderly neighbors. Check on senior citizen neighbors. Check on friends and family. Have a discussion. Don't have an argument. If God does not intervene in the interim, I'll be back here next week. Please try to think about what I said. We should be better than this. We should be much better than this. We should be more than this. People should count for more than this. We are more than plastic straws. Please take care of yourselves, everyone. I beg you, please take care of yourselves and each other. Until next week, thank you for letting me be part of your Sunday evenings. Take care.